this guy's been pushing everybody. You can vote no.
This meeting. This meeting of the Margate City Planning Board is called to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Tom Collins.
Here.
Clem Wozleski. Rich Patterson.
Here.
Mike Cristaldi.
Here.
Jim Galantino.
Here.
Margaret Gubernalti. Craig Palmisano. Despina Hess. Remy Pelosi. Joe DiGirolamo.
Here.
Ron Grupo.
Here.
Mike Richmond.
This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in a press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of August 23rd, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for the approval of decisions and resolutions number 39, 2018, consistent report on ordinance number 17-2018, removed. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Craig?
I'll second it.
Mike? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay, so
Motion
just so-
passes.
Just so we're clear, that was removed from the agenda, so that's what we just voted on, just confirming that that was removed. You recall we were here last month, we discussed, that was the ordinance that had a bunch of zoning changes that we had discussed, and it also included the hotel overlay. That was before the commissioners on September 20th, I believe. That was ordinance 17. They pulled that whole ordinance, so there's no reason that we would adopt any type of consistent report on an ordinance that no longer exists. Now, there is a new ordinance that we're going to get to, ordinance number 24, that they introduced on September 20th, that we'll talk about it more when we get there, but it's essentially the same ordinance without the hotel overlay aspect of it, which we discussed at length, so I don't think we have to spend too much time on it, but we'll get to that when we
Everything else is the same other than the hotel being removed from it?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so we have discussed that at length.
correct.
Yes. Right. You want to announce the public portion?
Yes, we're going to
Rich.
switch the order. There's a number of people here from the public.
For the record, Remy Pelosi is here.
There's a number of people from the public who are here, so to accommodate them, we're going to put the public participation first. So if once that's over, if they want to leave, they certainly can. Obviously, you're welcome to stay, and we'll get to the applications after that. But I will just note, if anyone's here for 301 North Vendome Avenue, that's postponed until October 25th. That's not a formal announcement. That's an informal announcement because Mr. Valenson is going to provide notice and publication.
He'll
of that.
re-notice the public.
Yeah, I don't think, my understanding is he hasn't noticed it all yet, so he will do that. So with that said, we can go in, we can hear from members of the public. Since it's just a public discussion, everyone should come up, state their name and address, but we don't need to swear anyone
don't
in.
need to
It's-
swear 'em in?
No, they're not
Okay.
applications where they're providing testimony.
Okay. We've never done this before. We've never had this many members from the public, but we're going to do the same as a commission meeting, and we're going to listen to, your time will be limited to 3 minutes as it is with the commission meeting. So-
You should make a motion to open it to the public when.
Right, well, I'm
when-
explaining
when-
how that.
Once you explain it, exactly.
Okay, so I need a motion to open to the public portion.
I'll make that motion.
Tom?
Second.
Jim? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So public portion is open. If you'd like to come forward, you don't need to be sworn in, just state your name and address.
Somebody's got
I almost closed public portion.
Hi, my name's Cynthia Levin, 203 North Vendome Avenue. Many
you.
of you were at the commissioners' meeting last week, and there was a discussion on whether or not the master plan would be revised or reviewed or reopened. Has there been any discussion within the planning board to do that?
We just did discuss that. The master plan stays exactly the same, except the hotel overlay has been removed.
Not from the master plan.
Huh?
As an ordinance, it has been removed.
As an ordinance, it
We're
has been
talking
removed.
about the master plan itself.
No.
Is there any discussion about possibly having that relooked at?
We've been looking at it for 3 years.
There's a public outcry as to the way the master plan was prepared, the hearings that were supposedly held from the public.
Wait.
the-
The hearings that,
Well, there was a question at the commissioners' hearing as to what input the people who wrote the master plan received.
right,
Pardon me? From the community.
Right.
And from the stakeholders.
right.
It was very unclear to the people in the audience and the community how those stakeholders were invited, what meetings were held, what testimony was given, and how the master plan was actually prepared, what input was received to reach the conclusions that we needed a
Right.
hotel.
Yes. The hotel or the
The
hotel was
hotel
one.
overlay. There
Right, well, that
are-
was one portion of the master plan. There was meeting after meeting after meeting. The public was invited.
We'd like to know when those meetings were held and when the public was invited and how those invitations
The
were.
public would be invited 10 days before each of those meetings. There would have been public notice.
Can we?
We cannot, please, by law, we have a notice requirement. Every town in New Jersey has to follow these requirements. We follow those requirements to a T. If you have an issue of our notice, and this is not disrespectful, this is an issue for your senators and congressmen in New Jersey. We have to follow that rule, and at this moment, I'd like to defer to our attorney. It's illegal if we do other than what the proper notice is.
I'm not sure that we're talking about the same hearings. My understanding is that the people who who prepared the master plan, which was a.
Remington
gaming-
and Verdict,
Remington and Vernick, Spectrum Gaming, and some leisure consulting company.
Remington Vernick.
Well,
Remington
no.
and Vernick hired Spectrum Gaming as a consultant.
And they also hired a leisure consulting company. And my
Right.
understanding is that those other entities held meetings with stakeholders. We'd like to know about those.
If I may, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of questions about that. I would like to read Spectrum Gaming's report of what they did. And this does not cut into your
Okay, sure.
3
I'll sit
minutes.
down.
This is going to take, so if you want to sit for a while. Spectrum Gaming was a consultant to Remington Vernick. They did not write the master plan, but this is their report. This part of our analysis offers a qualitative examination of the challenges and opportunities that Margate faces. This represents, in a large measure, the results of our research. Our team, working with the Subcommittee Commission and Planning Department, held a variety of meetings with more than 40 key stakeholders, ranging from local retailers to architects, builders, lawyers, real estate agents, local restaurant owners, small business managers, religious leaders, civic leaders, heads of nonprofit organizations, second homeowners, year-round residents, and others. By definition, such an analysis represents a big-picture effort to distill a wide variety of views into a single analysis. We have structured this section in terms of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that Margate faces, which is abbreviated into the term SWOT analysis. Organizations tend to rely on SWOT analyses to kickstart the planning process, as it offers a proven means of identifying the issues that must be identified and addressed, both the obvious and the not-so-obvious. As noted in this definition, a SWOT analysis, if used wisely, can be a critical starting point in the planning process. The SWOT analysis is a simple, albeit comprehensive strategy for identifying not only the weaknesses and threats of a plan, but also the strengths and opportunities it makes possible. While an excellent brainstorming tool, the four-cornered analysis also prompts entities to examine and execute strategies in a more balanced way. With that definition in mind, our SWOT analysis for Margate has clearly met its goals by helping to identify the issues that our team will take into account as part of the larger planning process. Identifying, revealing strengths and weaknesses. The core strengths are obvious and would hardly be expected to generate any dissent. Margate is a shore community with an extensive beachfront and bayfront. The beach provides public access at all street ends, while bayfront access is more limited. Margate is perceived as a clean and safe with a well-functioning, effective school system, a responsive local government, and well-designed, easy navigable streets. Its housing stock, while aging in some areas where homes that are more than 50 years old can be found, is continually improving. Margate is free of blight and poverty. Its property tax rate is relatively low. Margate has a stable supermarket and other core retailers that serve as effective anchors that meet the ongoing needs of its residents and populations. Some of the core weaknesses are also readily apparent, including Margate has limited access with only one privately owned roadway leading directly off the Absecon Island. That one roadway is privately operated, requiring a toll each way, thus discouraging some visitation in and out of Margate. Margate's tourism infrastructure is limited in a variety of areas, including access to public restrooms, parking, and transient lodging. Margate's economic interests are divided, with differing groups seeking different goals that are not in sync, and in some cases are diametrically opposed to each other. That last point is not to suggest that Margate is riven with warring factions. That is hardly the case. Indeed, the differing goals are not necessarily obvious to all those who hold them, but the existence of such disparate views became readily apparent during our research. Major threat, lack of consensus. Indeed, the core challenge faced in developing a SWOT analysis is the recognition that Margate itself presents a special challenge. What some perceive as strengths, others perceive as weaknesses, while some perceived threats are perceived by others as opportunities. This challenge became quite evident during our research into the views of Margate stakeholders. The lack of consensus can be found in a variety of issues, ranging from whether the Ventnor Boardwalk should be extended into Margate, an issue that dates back decades, to whether Margate should exploit its proximity to Atlantic City or disengage. Complete consensus on critical issues is, in our experience, an unattainable goal. However, we have identified certain issues on which the business community appears to be united. The Margate Bridge, the chief connector between Margate and the mainland, is a hindrance to visitation and a bête noire to residents. I don't know what that means. Visitors and business people. As one business owner noted, the Margate Bridge is our #1 nemesis. Margate suffers as a sending district to Atlantic City High School, which business owners view as a negative factor when families are considering where to live. Margate would benefit from having a main street, which would be a central magnet for shoppers. The city could use more public restrooms, bike racks, and other amenities that visitors value and need. A shortage of public parking, particularly in the summer months, discourages visitation and hurts local businesses. The suggested solutions that would, in the eyes of business people, make Margate more appealing to visitors and business that target visitors covered a wide range, including tax rebates to encourage families to move to Margate, traffic calming measures along certain routes to slow traffic, add a miniature golf course or equivalent family-type attraction, increase the overall marketing effort, leverage Lucy the Elephant more as a symbol of Margate, develop a hockey rink to encourage winter visitation, build a boutique hotel to bring in visitors and make Margate less dependent on transients who stay in other communities, allow and encourage outdoor seating for restaurants and taverns, offer tax incentives or rebates for families seeking to move to Margate year-round. Such suggestions vary in their practicality and their potential effect, yet they reflect some serious concerns. The tax incentive rebate suggestion, for example, could potentially encourage more year-round living, but at the expense of foregoing tax revenue, as well as in potentially dampening real estate values. Second home buyers are presumably more affluent and more willing to pay more and would add to the cost of public services, particularly in education costs. Still, such suggestions reflect real concerns. At this particular business leader noted, what is the point of putting entertainment on the street at nighttime if nothing is open? The problem is not our image or perception, it is our declining full-time population. The infrastructure is falling apart because there are not enough kids here. That's not spectrum, that's one person's comment. Ongoing evolution in the second home community. The clear ongoing trend toward the view of Margate as an attractive second home community, as well as a haven for empty nesters, does create a natural tension between business owners who would prefer to have a more year-round community along with younger families. Similarly, there is a tension between property owners on beach blocks who oppose dune building as a protective measure and those who own property further back from the beach who may seek better protection from storms. Our meetings with stakeholders underscore what should be obvious to even the most casual observer of long-term trends in the city. Absent any significant shift in local policy or planning, Margate will continue on the same path it has followed for several decades, away from serving as a year-round community for families and continuing its evolution into a second home community. This trend, according to the stakeholders we interviewed, has accelerated in recent years, and that evolution threatens to become self-fulfilling. As Margate becomes less and less of a year-round community, it will be difficult to attain the goal of reestablishing itself as a year-round community. For those who seek to advance the evolution of Margate into a second home community, that factor would be welcoming and would be characterized as a strength and opportunity. Conversely, for those who seek to recapture Margate's position as a stable year-round community, that factor becomes a weakness and a threat. This can be perceived as a clear strength in certain key categories. It creates demand for real estate in the city, which keeps the city's market value relatively buoyant, helping homeowners. Second homeowners will not send children to local public schools or consume high levels of other public services, thus creating a source of tax revenue without a commitment increase in spending. Because such second homeowners tend to be relatively prosperous and view their Margate homes as important investments, they maintain their properties and often improve them. Improvements can range from entire teardown and rebuilds to adding rooms to simply improving the appearance of the properties. Builders and architects find increased demand for the services as a result of this trend. Real estate agents profit from this trend in the form of higher commissions and greater demand. Increase in service-type businesses, landscaping, home maintenance, etc. The same precise trend can also be perceived as a weakness in various ways. It sharpens the contrast between summer and winter populations, creating streets and neighborhoods that are eerily quiet for the remaining homeowners. Demand for local spending will continue to drop precipitously in the colder months. Families, especially families with children, will find themselves relatively isolated, and that isolation threatens to grow over time. These trends, in turn, will foster other trends. For example, the lack of year-round demand for services will make the task of attracting new and a broader variety of retailers more difficult. Additionally, there is no reason to expect that second homeowners and their supporters would welcome policies to encourage more transient or daytime summer visitors. Such a policy might well be considered an opportunity, since increased summer visitation benefits numerous local constituencies and interest groups, ranging from retailers and restaurant owners to the city government itself, which relies on beach tag sales to maintain and operate its beaches. The long-term trend toward a second home community has had an effect on several stakeholder groups, from senior citizens to religious organizations to nonprofit groups, among others. The City Recreation Department is serving fewer and fewer children, while according to some stakeholders, seniors who remain in Margate feel increasingly isolated. As one noted, the streets are dark and they are the only ones there. Many of the programs and organizations that have long been social pillars in Margate, from churches and synagogues to social service organizations, are broadening their demographic and geographic efforts as they find that Margate itself provides fewer full-time residents or supporters. Clearly, the school system is one of the most visible institutions to reflect this ongoing trend. According to the superintendent of schools, most of the families that have left are renters. It's getting more difficult to rent here, he said. When a series of apartments were converted to condos in 2001, we lost 9 families. As those families migrated to Ventnor and Summers Point and other near-kind communities that still had housing for renters. Such programs, DeNicola said, provide a source of revenue. An inclusive preschool program, in addition to the already in place mandated preschool disabled program, which began in 2004 for Margate and Longport, was discontinued at the end of 2010. At any given year, the program enrolled up to 25 non-classified preschoolers. Clearly, the decline in enrollment is both a harbinger of this ongoing trend and a result of it. There are self-fulfilling elements to this, as the decline in enrollment makes it more difficult to attract new families who do not want to be pioneers. Notably, the one long-standing concern in Margate has been its relationship as a sending district to Atlantic City High School, which, despite its significance as a well-capitalized facility, is still viewed as urban. This is not a new issue, and indeed was a concern to parents as far back as the 1960s. The realtors and builders confirm there is a negative perception of Atlantic City High School and that the negative perception is a hindrance to attracting families. Dean Nicola pointed that the perception is not always the reality. You will find a lot of satisfied parents whose children attend the Margate schools. Business leaders are generally praiseworthy of municipal government, which they view as sensitive to their needs and concerns. Margate will do anything to help you. As sanguine as business leaders appear to be towards local government, they counterbalance this positive view with palpable levers of exasperation toward how Margate markets itself to potential visitors, which are the core market and provide the lifeblood for many businesses. I'll read everything. As one restaurant owner noted, we don't know who we are. In the view of this particular business person, 70% of the people living on the island are against the businesses. Again, that's a personal opinion, not part of the report. That is, of course, an unverifiable number, and we are not aware of any survey that could support or challenge such a notion. But we suggest that attitudes and perceptions count. With that in mind, our research makes it clear that Margate needs to address the natural tension between the interests of various stakeholders. We don't have what families, one real estate professional with a sense of recognition noted, we don't have what families look for. Margate is shutting down. We don't have a boardwalk or what kids are looking for. He went on to say that the municipal government should seek projects that make this city family-friendly, place for entertainment. We have made it unaffordable for young families to come in unless they are really successful. In interviews with various business people, we sensed a longing for two groups that are interested, increasingly rare in Margate, year-round families and transient tourists. The two groups clearly have little in common with each other, but both have been displaced by elements of the same long-term trend, the lucrative second home market. As real estate agents and others noted, Margate once had a small lodging industry comprised of a handful of motels that no longer exist. Several of the people we interviewed suggested that the city could benefit from the return of short-term lodging, perhaps in the form of what real estate agents suggested, a condo-tel. Indeed, several of the business people we interviewed expressed a desire for such investments, but shied away from using terms as motel, which has negative connotations. With a condo hotel property, buyers are purchasing a piece that defines a condo hotel. The views of many in the business community were succinctly summarized by one business leader who urged the city commission to make it a fun town, make it a coastal town, capitalize on the resources that we have, look at the beachfront, look at the bayfront. Several business leaders cited Delray Beach as a model, noting that Delray, which adopted its master plan in 2002, has taken advantage of their national resources such as the bayfront. The comparison to Delray, as well as to use as prototype, are limited by a variety of factors, ranging from different climates to different regional economies. But the view of many in Margate business community, it demonstrates the effectiveness of a comprehensive master plan to redevelop certain areas, such as a downtown retail core. We asked business people for some practical lessons that could be derived from communities such as Delray and Playa Margate. The answers were a more targeted zoning approach and to the application of mixed-use zoning, which retail floors in the ground floor could have attractive housing on upper floors. The lesson, as gleaned from these interviews, is that while lodging facilities and families living year-round have been disappearing, they are needed to reinvigorate the business sector in Margate. The city has a goal that supersedes money, long-term life as a city. The meetings with a variety of builders, architects, real estate agents, and related people underscored some of the key assets Margate offers, which can be tangible and intangible. In the former category would be Castle Supermarket, a business that many public and private leaders view as an essential pillar of the ability to be a full-service community and its retail district. In the intangible category would be the commitment of city officials to work with these businesses, as well as what many we interviewed have termed the Margate brand. Supporting the notion of a business-friendly government, one architect noted that you can pick up the phone and speak to anyone. What is great about Margate, it is a strictly controlled, visually know what we have to achieve here. The characteristics of the Margate brand were described in various terms. A community that is beautifully designed, attractive landscaping, clean neighborhoods, a magical town. In our experience, a community brand is an essential component of its future, as a brand has a self-fulfilling element to it. What is there determines what comes. That suggestion is critically important. In this instance, it would port the suggestion that Margate's ongoing evolution into a second home community could fuel Margate's further evolution along that path. According to the professionals whose livelihoods depend on the demand for real estate in Margate, the buyers of second homes tend to be older, with most being members of the baby boomers, who have reached a certain level of financial success and are getting into the grandparent stage. In their view, which we believe is typical of most second homeowners in the city, they are loved by Margate because they keep real estate prices high, maintain or improve their homes, and demand little or nothing in the way of public services. Second homeowners feel they are ideal homeowners for the city, and yet they observe a level of resentment for the full-time residents. Throughout its history, Margate has been pulled in and out of the orbit of Atlantic City, serving at various times as a bedroom community for the larger resort, or an oasis that functioned and thrived independently of Atlantic City. Even Atlantic City's darkest economic period of the 60s and 70s, Margate was a stable, thriving community with a well-maintained housing stock and a population that had little variation between summer and winter. That proven history of economic independence of Atlantic City has allowed most but not all of the stakeholders we interviewed to suggest Margate remain completely independent of Atlantic City. Atlantic City's resurgence from 78 to 06 appeared to have had little impact on Margate, just as the previous decades of decline had little impact. These back-to-back periods failed to show a clear economic correlation between the two cities, and we sense that the prevailing view today is that we are in a similar period now, which almost no correlation exists. A closer examination reveals a very real, if indirect, correlation that is both an opportunity and a threat. This correlation became apparent when real estate agents and others noted a trend within a trend. Families in the market for new homes, particularly on the high end of the real estate spectrum, are finding bargains on the mainland, which comprises of Linwood, Northfield, etc. The apparent bargains on the mainland, where home prices have dropped precipitously in the past decade, can largely be attributed to the combination of an exodus of affluent professionals and a dearth of would-be buyers. Such a combination would inevitably result in a material lower prices as supply and demand drop to a lower point of equilibrium. This trend means that Margate must compete against the mainland communities for the remaining demand from affluent households, which in turn makes Margate less attractive. As real estate agents point out, the steady demand for second homes in Margate has buoyed housing prices, making Margate less competitive for year-round families. Clearly, the bottom line is that Margate and Atlantic City are trapped in a very real but not readily apparent minuet. As Atlantic City's fortunes have declined, the region that has served as a bedroom communities for Atlantic City have seen their real estate values decline, thus making it harder for Margate to recapture year-round residents. Some stakeholders in Margate clearly have a very real, readily apparent interest in the economic fortunes of Atlantic City. These range from high-end restaurants that target conventions and meetings to Atlantic City to attorneys, physicians, and other professionals who depend on a stable and year-round workforce. The only reason I read that entire thing is because in one paragraph they mentioned a condo hotel. In one paragraph they mentioned a golf course. This was a comprehensive look at. This is not the master plan. This is what they got from their studies with meetings with stakeholders, including second homeowners and members of the public, along with members of different groups of business people. This was a preliminary, were you the one that was speaking before?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know if she was.
That's
done.
okay.
Okay.
You can finish.
So this was at the very beginning as a basis, and this is their job. They're called Spectrum Gaming, but this is part of what they do in helping cities or helping the engineers that did the plan to come up with a master plan. It's a very beginning stages, and I think they did a very thorough job of seeing different parts of the city. That's why I read that. So was the previous speaker like to finish?
That's fine, I think we're.
Okay, fine,
It's okay.
okay. So your name and
Hi,
address, please?
Yeah, Susan
And
Rubin.
I apologize for the long
No,
rant.
no,
but
I
that's-
actually appreciate that, and I'll tell you why.
Now you
in a second.
have heard
That's
this
right,
report.
that's
Yes.
wonderful. I've been looking for that piece of paper.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Susan Rubin, 117, 119 South Osborne Avenue. The only reason I was asking was, I think the confusion came, we all looked at a draft of a master plan that was on the Margate website, and when you read the master plan, it basically, the draft of it anyway, it said that
it said restaurants were complaining that there wasn't enough business, we had to go to a more transitional community, and somehow that bringing in a hotel or more transient people would result in Margate getting more year-round residents, which didn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense to me
No, it
either.
doesn't. So that was on the draft. I don't see it in the final. I haven't read it line for line. But I had asked the commission if there were, because you did say that there were second homeowners at these stakeholder meetings, and I had a few months ago asked the mayor if there was any evidence of who the stakeholders were. And he gave me some documents, and I saw
Well, at the
some
meetings I went to, you had to sign into the meeting, so I would think somewhere there's,
I didn't
something.
see them. He did show me documents,
Yeah.
and all I saw was 2 meetings trying to be planned, only with restaurants. And I guess everybody was questioning, well, where are the second homeowners and all this? I think that report really cleaned up a lot of stuff. It made it very evident what they were thinking, what they were analyzing, and how they came to some of the conclusions that they came to. So I didn't see that document, but I think that was.
I don't think anybody did. That's why I wanted to read it.
Yeah,
I need a
thank you.
glass of
I-
water.
That's what I was looking for. So thank you.
All right. Huh? What was it?
Can you just clarify for me and the rest of the community, when you say that the hotel overlay has not been adopted,
It's been eliminated
it's
from
been
the.
eliminated from the master plan?
No,
No,
No?
no,
very
that's not
confused.
correct.
it's eliminated from the master plan.
Was it in the master plan?
Yes.
Well, then, I'm sorry. I'm
As a
confused,
concept,
so he
not
has
as
to
an
speak.
ordinance.
I understand that the ordinance issue has been dropped.
Correct.
However, the master plan still contains a recommendation that we have a hotel overlay zone. Is that correct?
Correct.
News to
Is
me.
there, okay, so that's correct. So the master plan as it stands is a plan that the board and the commissioners will follow over the next 10 years.
As I said at the commissioners' meeting last week, because there's stuff in the master plan, doesn't mean it's ever going to be into law.
No, it doesn't, but
ideas.
it's still, but I think as a community, we are still concerned that that is not necessarily where the community sees us going over the next 10 years. There's a lot of objection to that hotel overlay zone, and that's what I wanted to ask about. Is the board willing to take another look at the master plan and look specifically at that issue as whether or not that's an appropriate place for us as a community to go?
Can we,
The master plan's been adopted, it's been approved by the state, it's been approved by the federal government, it's a planning board document, it's not a government document.
Last week, I asked whether it was possible for it to be reviewed, and I thought it was possible. There's no legal impediment to reviewing it, is there?
There's a cost,
There's a cost, but the first plan was done with a grant.
correct.
All right, so
Partial.
what would be the cost, and what would be the
That master
downside of
plan was
looking at it?
$200,000.
Okay, I'm not asking.
I'm very unfamiliar with this machine, I'm sorry.
What he's saying is that for us to hire a firm and redo the whole master
I
plan
don't-
again right
I-
now.
we're not looking to
Would
review
cost the taxpayers at least $200,000 or more.
No, but what if we looked at the master plan and deleted if we looked at the master plan, and I'm asking this question, could we delete the overlay zone from the master plan?
It'll
I'm
have,
asking if we can do that.
I don't think so.
wasn't
It
asking
can be
you.
revisited. I mean, there's a state law that requires every 10 years, it used to be 6, that the master plan has to be revisited by law. We're going to have to revisit it at some point in time for the fair housing plan, which the funds for the grants that we received did not cover that portion of it.
That's the COA portion, correct?
Right, and there's also capital planning. This only covered 4 portions of the 10 sections of the master plan.
So my question is, based upon the outpouring of negative comments on the hotel overlay, is it possible for us, as part of the planning process in general, to take a look at the hotel overlay portion and see whether or not that really should be part of our master plan before 10 years go by?
I don't see the point in it if it's not going to be a law. It has to go back to the governing body for 2 readings to be a law.
No, what has to be a law are the ordinances that would allow for that master plan to go into effect. But the master plan itself is an approved
Planning board
statement.
document.
It's a planning board document that, as we were told last week, guides the planning board in their decisions on what happens. So that means when someone comes in front of the planning board and asks for a variance to build a condo hotel or a variance to allow multi-family housing on the beach, they could point to the master plan and say, we need this variance, and look, Margate, you have in your master plan a provision and a statement that you want a condo hotel, that you want more transient houses. So I find that it is important that that is in the master plan. And it can be used to change the character of our neighborhood by someone coming in and saying, pointing to that when they're asking for their variances. So is it possible for you to look at the master plan again?
It's up to the governing body.
Can somebody just say no? Can we just say no? It's not possible.
Well, it is possible. It's a question of money.
By the way,
Wait.
not all
Not a
the
question of money.
community is not in favor of the
Well,
condo hotel.
I'm not asking for you to make a decision one way or the other. I'm asking for you
My
to revisit
decision
it.
is no. Anybody else?
No, wait. I think it is possible, whether we do it or not with everything else we're doing. I don't see it as, I'm not going to say that. That'll be printed tomorrow in the paper the wrong way. Anything is possible. Yeah, could we look at it? Do we see it as a threat that it's going to happen? We don't see it as a threat. We see it as a dead issue because of the public input. To go back and change the master plan,
It's a portion. We're not saying the whole plan.
no, to just leave it as a loan and just take the overlay portion out, maybe it could be done. Are we going to commit to that tonight?
Would you be willing to discuss it in the future?
Sure,
Thank you.
yes.
Just to who is testifying, ma'am? I'm sorry. Just to reply, I know you're hearing the responses from some of the board members. I want you to just hear from me as well. I think that everything you said, I want you to understand that it completely follows a logical argument. I see your concerns, and it's completely valid. And what you're saying, quite frankly, I see the threat, and I believe that that is very real, because someone would point to the master plan, and they very well should. But practically, what some of the other members are trying to tell you as well as Mr. McLaren is, practically speaking, that wouldn't be sufficient to justify the request, because there's other factors that go into it.
Well, I
And
also,
quite frequently, when you, as you suggest, people come before the board and request variances, there are certain things that may still exist onto the plan, but we have an understanding, or the community knows, for instance, trying to think of something, decks, third floor decks. As it was stated, they weren't permitted anywhere. There was an understanding, and people that came before the board knew that if you were on the beach block, that's where we were headed. It still stated that they weren't permitted, but we know that was the direction that the community and this board was headed. We now know, both as the board and the community, that the hotel overlay generally is a major concern, and it's not where the community wants to be headed. So that's essentially where I believe my interpretation is, where it stands currently. So your logic is completely valid, but that's just an example of one other way that scenarios have played out, where technically, yes, it was in the plan, but there was understanding of what the community wanted and what the board would do.
well,
I believe this is the beginning of that route.
And I appreciate your saying that, and I also think now that the community is a little more organized and have gotten together in a community association, they will pay more attention to the variances that come before the board, and I think.
Do you
that's
know
very
we
important.
normally have 1 to 0 people
Exactly.
at our meetings, other than the applicants
I
themselves?
understand that. And I
Not
think-
by design, but
No, and I think
we're
people
open
have
to
been
anyone.
asleep. I
Right.
think people have been asleep, and I think this community association will keep, no, I think keep
Okay.
everyone informed as to what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Hi, Mark Alch, 20 South Decatur. I have a couple things regarding the hotel overlay. If you're saying that it's going to be hard to redo a master plan again, is there a way to put it out as a referendum just to kill that whole sentence?
I think there is. I think you have to gather a certain amount of, you, not us.
Okay.
Have to gather a certain amount of signatures. I don't know if it applies to the master plan. I know that was the referendum with the dunes. That's my only reference, is they got enough signatures and it was on the ballot. So that may be, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. But going how the dunes went, I would think that would be possible, but that's up to them. That's your job, that's not our job.
Right, so if we collected enough signatures.
Well, I would check with a lawyer first if you can change the master plan that way. So
Oh.
that may be a viable option.
Okay,
No, I can't, I don't know the answer to that. Whether you can, as a planning board attorney, whether with the referendum process to change something in the master plan, sitting up here, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, so.
okay,
I don't know.
But you
Be
can get
honest
a,
with
all right, but you being an attorney on the planning board, I would think you would know more than maybe a regular attorney?
In terms of planning board stuff, I would hope so.
Well, no, as far as the referendum goes.
no.
That's not planning board.
It's not really planning
Okay.
board issues. I mean,
Okay.
referendums are
Okay.
Right,
stuff
but-
that
right,
gets put to the
okay.
voters,
I would suggest
obviously.
you talk to a lawyer that knows that, and I
Okay.
don't know who, but knew that, and if you can do that, feel
Well-
free to do it.
Also, I know protocol is 200 feet to let the houses know.
That's not protocol, that's law.
Okay.
We-
With that,
go
with
ahead.
that in mind, Atlantic Avenue is 100 feet, which means maybe the first house across Atlantic Avenue.
We cannot extend that. We cannot make it less, we cannot make it more.
And I could address that. I mean, is that your question?
Why?
To make it 300 feet in certain areas?
Or something, no, regarding the hotel overlay, I mean, if that were to come up again, something similar to that, whether it be 19 stories, 6 stories.
But
about-
that followed the rules that every other thing, it's within 200 feet. Would you?
There's case
let's-
law where, well, as a planning board, we don't change ordinances or state statutes, but, so that would be something that the commissioners would have to do. But I can say there is case law, which I actually have a few copies of the case which I can pass out from our appellate court where I think it was the Township of Edison. They tried to expand their 200-foot requirement to 300 feet. And they also said applicants have to stick a sign in their property advertising that they're coming before the board for a variance. And that ordinance was challenged, and the court said, look, the law is what it is. The law strikes a balance between burdens on developers or applicants and the public, and the towns are bound by that. They have no authority to expand the notice requirements, and we would also have no authority to lessen the notice requirements. So our hands are tied there. That is really a state law issue that would have to be changed.
Okay, and then.
And we are no different than every single town in New
Right.
Jersey.
Okay. The last thing was ordinance 24-2018. I think I heard at the beginning, you said it's similar to 17-2018, but without the hotel overlay.
Yes, we discussed that at the opening remarks, yes.
Okay. Can you explain what 24-2018 is?
It's the housekeeping ordinances that we discussed at the last commission meeting.
Without the overlay, they decided, the
Hotel overlay.
commissioners
There's no
decided to
mention.
take it
It was
out.
all deleted. Every aspect, every reference to hotel overlay was taken out.
That was the commissioner's decision. So
Definitions, everything.
because it changed, we have to approve it again. So the only change is the deletion of the hotel overlay zone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol Christensen Leaf. I have some more fundamental questions.
Address, please?
100 South Osborne, Margate.
Thanks.
The first thing is, it's a little jarring to see that your plan is based on Delray Beach, when Margate has.
Our plan is not,
Well, you were talking about basing something around Delray Beach.
it was
a
a
reference.
It was a reference. It
What-
was not
What was the
based-
reference? What
We-
were you trying to compare it with, Margate?
It was a reference to what Delray Beach did.
Okay.
This was an advisory, preliminary discussion after talks with every group in town that they could contact with. It has no bearing on any final element in there. This was a starting point, and it says right in here, this is a point of discussion, and it gave both sides of the issue. This is the positive that the locals will like, this is the negative that the summer people will like. That's what it
Okay,
was.
well, it's just strange to me that it would not be compared to a place like Stone Harbor or Avalon, when Delray is 16 square miles and Margate is 1.6 square miles. They have a population 10 times what Margate does. Delray's population is 67,000 and Margate's is 6,100.
Well, I'll be sure to slap their wrists, because it had.
Well, I
it was
mean,
a
you know, it's
very-
just not, I mean,
It
it
was a
doesn't seem to
very
tell-
minor point. That's
Yeah,
why I
well,
read this entire report.
I heard a lot about Delray and
Just
that.
mention
and
it
I was
once.
listening.
It was mentioned in one
It's
paragraph.
it's a silly comparison, and it's a silly thing to be in.
Well, let me
Margate's planning
apologize on the
commission
behalf
meetings.
of Remington and Vernick, who wrote the plan to use Delray in there, because it was a very minimal part of that.
Okay,
We're not
well-
comparing Margate or trying to turn Margate
Okay.
into Delray.
Point taken.
Thank you.
You know, the other question I have is more fundamental. What is, I mean, I don't know what is, I'm trying to figure out what's required to be on the planning board. You got a fitness instructor, you got 2 realtors.
Excuse me, are you referring to the attorney over there?
No, I'm referring to
Miss Attorney, the lawyer?
Pelosi.
Pelosi, the lawyer.
Oh, said you were a fitness instructor, but. Oh, you're, okay. I know, but now you're a builder.
Now he's a one-person contractor.
He's a builder. He
I
owns.
think that.
Wait a
hardware
minute, hold on,
store.
right, 1 minute, wait a minute. On the corner there is James Galantino.
I know
He's a-
Jimmy. I didn't say he was a
it.
contractor. He's the building
He's the
inspector.
Stop. He is an enforcement official in Margate that was a valuable addition to the board. Next to him, he's not on the board, he's the mayor's representative on the board. The mayor has a place on the board. The mayor can appoint someone to
He's the
represent him.
mayor's designee.
He
that
owns
the
a hardware
correct title?
store. He's the
I
mayor's
shop at his
brother-in-law.
store all the time.
Full disclosure, he's the mayor's brother-in-law. Next to him is a retired architect, nothing to do with
I
development.
didn't say the.
Next to him
I
is
wasn't
a,
mentioning
I'm
that.
sorry, I'm using your time. My time is up. Is a retired fireman that does home handyman business. Next to him is another
He's
single
pretty
member.
successful at it.
Oh, really? I do his tax return, so let's debate how successful he is.
all right. We don't
Next
have
to
to
him,
split
no,
hairs
this
about that.
question came up at the meeting, and it
Did it?
upset me that we are full of developers trying to ruin the city. Next to him is a one-man construction company that builds customs houses. He does
I
not
know you
build,
built a house down the street from me.
he does not build spec houses. Next to him is a
Right.
prosecuting attorney. Next to him is the manager of a real estate
Mm-hmm.
office. Another realtor next to her. We also have an attorney sitting there. We come to him as another one-man building company that
Hey,
does
Sir,
not
I don't
build.
care what they are. I just.
I'd care what they are.
I'm
Next to
saying
him
it's
is a
over.
one-man builder.
You're making this an argument. I'm trying
I'm
to
making
find out
this
what
into,
you
this
have
board
to
has been
do.
accused of being developers that are tearing this town apart. I'm introducing every member of this board and what they do. It is varied. I am a CPA.
Mm-hmm.
We are your neighbors. Everybody in this board has served many years, has lived in this town as long, many years
My
as you
family has
have.
been here for 200
I'm
years.
friends with your family, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
I'm friends with your father, your sister, so I know your family very well. We are your neighbors. We are not here to destroy Margate. That is what is out there. So to say we have these developers here that are in it for their own.
Sir, I didn't
is a
say they
false.
were developers. I said they were contractors. I never said developers.
Okay, continue.
Okay? I'm just saying, it seems like it might be a good thing to have more citizen people and not so much of
It's,
people
we're
that-
limited to 12.
Sir, you keep interrupting me.
We're
That's
limited to 12 people.
Sir, you're not letting me talk. That's not
ahead.
really polite, okay?
Go ahead.
I'm letting you talk. I'm just saying, I'm just saying, it seems like it would be a little more balanced if there were different types of people that didn't have a vested interest in building. Handyman, whatever they
CPA,
are.
attorney, realtor.
Okay, we have to have
Attorney.
attorneys. Of course you do.
And as you brought up, I'm a fitness instructor, right?
Yes, you can.
Well, that's what it says on your, on.
I am, but I also.
I don't, listen, I don't.
I have a JD from Philadelphia.
I live at 200
When
North
you sit
Pembroke.
up
I
here,
live
you
on a
make the
double
rules.
lot.
Turn around and shut up.
I live on 200 North Pembroke. I live on a double lot.
Okay, I've said it, I've had enough of being
That's
bullied.
25 to an S
I'm not,
40.
I'm not gonna be
Don't
bullied
ever
by
do
all
that
you
to this
people.
board.
Next.
Everybody on this board cares.
Next.
Hello. Emily.
Wait a minute, wait, because I want you to have your full time.
Okay.
I've been accused of being rude and dismissive. This board has been accused of criminal activity. This board has been accused of taking kickbacks, specifically from Lou Ventura, who I wouldn't recognize if I banged into him on the street. This board has been accused of having secret meetings. So if I'm defensive, please, I'm not trying to be rude and dismissive. I'm a little defensive. I feel like Mrs. Dr. Ford on TV and Judge Kavanaugh on TV. The things that are being spewed about both of them is a disgrace. But this board in this past 6 months has been slandered from one end to the other of the illegal things we're doing. So I apologize for a little bit of shortness. I apologize for that. And I wanted to say that before you started so you could start fresh. And please state your name and address and what you have to say.
Emily Zaydan, 6 South Decatur Avenue. I guess I have one comment and then one question. After listening to that report, I don't totally disagree with a lot of it. I mean, I think there's some good ideas. And it seems to me that that report was trying to generate a more yearly population here. And to me, having a hotel overlay zone would negate that. I mean, it's too transient. It's going to be dead in the winter. So the businesses, the stores, whatever, aren't going to get the population they wanted from that zone. So that's just my statement. I know legally you're doing what you have to do to notify the residents, both full and part-time, about your hearings, about the contributions for the master plan. None of us here tonight, at least to my knowledge, and from the last meeting, knew of those meetings. Many of us don't read the Atlantic City Press.
I don't read
Wait,
those things.
okay.
Right.
But that's where, we were told legally that's where those notices are. Okay. And I know you have to do that by law. You said Jersey has that particular law. Isn't there an additional way that we can inform the general public, that we can be involved in these meetings, these conferences, these sessions to have input? Because we just don't feel like we have any input. Because I don't know of many common folk who came to any of those meetings, and that's all we're asking for.
I agree with you. It's a catch-22. We
Okay.
have the rules we have to follow to notify those meetings,
Right.
and I don't read legal
And I'm
notices
not
in the
saying not
paper.
follow those rules. Legally, you advertise.
The
But-
city has a robocall system. We can't use that because if we did it for one, we have to do it for every single item that comes before the board. We can't pick and choose as to
Okay,
which
I don't
ones
have
are
a problem with
important
that.
and
Does
which ones
anybody
are
else have a
not.
problem with that? I mean, we get a robocall when the fireworks are changed. We get them, and sometimes they're a nuisance, and we hang up if we don't want to
So could
listen
we
to
do
them.
robocalls,
Isn't
Leo,
there
or would
another
that be
way
illegal?
to
Cannot.
add?
Rich,
We cannot.
What?
we have meetings every last Thursday of every month.
The
Okay.
fourth Thursday.
Oh,
Fourth
no, let me
Thursday
say, it's not
of every
every
month.
Thursday, it's the
You can
last
come to the
Thursday.
meetings at 6:30.
No, we did
every
not.
month.
I'm
We've
not
never
talking
changed it.
about,
And then you will hear
Okay.
of our porch enclosures and stuff like
but I'm not
pool
talking about
setbacks and
the
everything
common
else that we
things
do.
that come
I
up.
think what she wants,
I'm not talking about the variances that come up and you get our input on. I'm talking about things as important as the master plan,
as a city employee, I agree with you.
okay?
And
We should have been given
We'll do a
that
better job getting that
opportunity.
stuff on a website and getting it out. That has to
I
be done.
can't get through that website sometimes. It took me like
I got a call
7
today.
or
I couldn't
8
find some-
7 or 8, clicks to find the agenda. You need a better web developer, sorry, but you do,
Well,
okay?
exactly, but
Okay.
none of us are capable of
I
doing that.
know that, but we're
And
just
yes, that
trying to
would be a
give
good
you
idea.
guys suggestions
What's Fred's
and
name?
let you know what we're feeling. We're not against you. We know you're not trying to harm this town. Nobody wants that. But we want input into the important decisions like a master plan.
And we want input, that's why we
We're just asking
had
for
so-
another way on top of the legal way that has to be done.
Well, I would
I wish
agree
you
with
guys
you.
could,
I would
could
agree with
find
you.
another way, an additional way, not another way.
And none of us have any
additional way.
problem with that. If there was something available to us that we were legally allowed to do, we would do it. We
Can you
welcome
look
people.
into the robocalls? Can you look into that?
From a legal perspective, whether that would interfere with the balance, I think a developer, certain people could have an argument that you're interfering with the balance between the applicant and the public. From a planning board perspective, I don't think we have the authority to to say, yes, we're going to put in a robocall system. We don't have the authority to expend those funds. I guess you'd need an employee to run it. I don't know what goes into that. That's more of a commission question,
All right,
to
and
be
maybe
honest
we
with
can
you. And I
look
don't mean
into
to punt.
posting these announcements,
But do you
like you said,
understand
on the
that
website.
we're in agreement on this?
Yeah.
And we want public input?
Absolutely,
We
I
don't
do.
have secret meetings?
I'm glad to hear that.
And I would say,
And I just wish we would have had public input, more public input on this master plan. Because what you read did not sound horrible. You know, there were some good ideas in that master plan.
And it was just
in that letter,
suggestions, right,
in
right.
those suggestions. But it seems to me, some of you, I'm not sure who, took those suggestions to heart and created this hotel overlay zone, which to me is counterproductive to where that letter was going, to where that report was headed. You know, that report was headed in a direction that a hotel overlay zone will not provide.
I think
No.
now we have records going back to 2015, 2016, where that was mentioned. This is, I have to step back from a planning board chairman at this point and speak as a person. I think what was initially proposed was minuscule compared to what it ended up and grew into over
Right.
these years.
Right. I mean, we were
And it-
thrown for a loop when we saw March 1st documents detailing this huge project.
No,
And I
wait.
know you guys didn't know
No,
that.
no, no,
but,
no,
you
no,
know,
wait.
But you gotta
I
put
do.
yourself in our place.
But one more comment about that. That was not a project. All we were
proposal.
voting on, it was not even proposed. Nothing came before the board. That was a project between the greenhouse
Right.
and their
Exactly.
professionals and CAFRA. It had never come before the board.
I know that, and this is what you mentioned, and someone, if they come to the board, if they come to the planning board with this project now, I'm not sure if legally you guys will have a way to say no because of the hotel overlay zone.
Well, that's absolutely wrong. That's absolutely wrong. No.
And I'm
no.
not sure, that's what I said, I'm not sure if it will be just say, no, we have a hotel overlay zone, so we.
No,
can
that's
build
not
a
how
hotel
it
there.
works. There is some by right cases that
Okay.
we get, and for some reason, they have to come before the board, even though we have to approve it.
Okay,
They're 1% of the cases that come before the board. That particular case would not. They would need tons of variances, they would be scrutinized, publicized, whatever.
Well, that's good.
No, they
Including
cannot
the use
come.
variance, which is very difficult.
if that came before the board today, they would need what's called a use variance,
okay.
which, yeah.
And a D variance for height.
Right,
And height,
there's a
depending on how high it
restriction.
is,
We do
height.
have a height restriction,
Yes.
don't we, in
Yes.
Margate?
So those
Yes.
are
Okay.
two,
And that's still in place, right? That height restriction?
Yes.
Okay.
right. So
Now, also, one CAFRA rule is, every floor, you can't cast a shadow on the beach. Every floor has to be set back.
Okay.
Now, what changed and what was reported in the paper, CAFRA changed the rule this year. The shadow line started at the bulkhead. They changed that and said the shadow line starts at the foot of the
Did
dunes.
you?
Because that's a new structure.
That does not mean you can build on that spot. It
Okay.
means the shadow can go that far.
Okay.
That's all it meant. We specifically did that. There was a member of the homeowners association here, and the next day, the homeowners association said, we approve building on the beach. No building could go on the beach. The homeowners association has said, we're privatizing the beach. We cannot privatize the beach. Many homeowners still own out 150 feet out into the ocean. That's also a problem with the boardwalk. We can't just put a boardwalk in because private people own that beach. Even though they can't develop it,
They still hold,
they own the beach.
all right.
We cannot take away air rights over the greenhouse. That'd be going to your house and saying, I'm taking away your rights. That's not a position of the planning board. We don't do that and wouldn't want to do it.
Okay, well, I mean,
So-
you got, I mean, I'm glad.
I'm
to
sorry
hear
I'm going
some of
over with
that's all right.
everybody,
I'm
but
glad to
I'm
hear some of
fine.
these answers.
Okay.
but I just wish you guys would try to get together and figure out a better way to inform us.
Point
To
taken.
join those.
I understand and I agree with you, absolutely.
Thank you.
Didn't you speak once?
Hi, Mark Gulch, 20 South Decatur.
he spoke.
Yeah, I know, just one.
No.
One other.
Once everybody else has
All
had
right.
a chance to speak, I will
Okay.
give you, if nobody else wants to speak and we end this, then you can come up. But at the end, you can speak again.
Debbie Gendelman, 9 North Adams Avenue. I just want to know, I have one quick question. Down by the bay, are you putting in this water park?
We have not had an application for the water park.
So what the hell? So-
What the hell
Yeah.
is, I can tell you this, no, we do know about it.
Well,
I've
you're
actually
building
met with the
something. You're
people.
doing something down there.
We aren't doing
People that own a water park bought a parcel of land down there. For about 3 years ago,
Parcel of water.
a parcel of water down there. About 3 years ago, they came and I talked to them and Roger talked to them. No secret meeting, completely legal, like we talk to anybody that wants to come before the board. Preliminarily, they came and said, this is what we're proposing. We said to them, this is the variances you would need. That was it. They have not come before us for anything, so we know nothing about it. Will they come before us? They own the land. Maybe they're going to come before us. If they do, there will be full public meetings. They will have to get variances.
Okay, one other quick question.
But the word out there is we've approved a 50,000 square foot water park. It's just not true. We have not had anything come before this
All
board.
over the place. Prior to this last year or the year before, if Johnny wanted to put a parking lot across the street from his restaurant, I got registered mail, I had to go to the post office, had to pick up the mail so that I could come to a meeting to discuss it. Next thing I know, there's a golf course bigger than anything I've ever seen on my corner. I get no notification of it. What?
If you live within 200 feet of it, you would have
Oh,
gotten
I
notification.
live on 9 North Adams Avenue. I'm right there. Right in the middle of the block. We
Well,
got
then notification was-
nobody got anything.
No, that's not true.
That's not true at all.
We have evidence of every letter that was sent out, whether it was returned or not, they may not have been returned, but we have, when the mailing goes out, and we don't notify, it's the applicant. They have to present proof of every letter, certified letter to the property owners. If you
I would
didn't
take-
get it, I don't know.
We don't know of one person that received them. We know our neighbors.
Let me bring this up. The planning board did not approve a golf course there. A golf course was allowed there. What the planning board approved was a height, the fence height could be a foot higher at the neighbor's request, and that the sign could be 10 foot,
A little bit larger.
a little bit larger than allowed. That's the only issues that came before the planning board.
It had nothing to do with the airplane and the water fountain and,
That is
whatever.
all zoned for that. We could not stop it. If they didn't have if they had a lower fence and a smaller sign, they would not have even had to come before the planning board.
Well, I'm just here to tell you, we did not see, we are a building of 4, not one of us received notification.
The
of it.
notices were sent, whether you received them or not, they have to provide proof to our,
She's welcome to come in and go through.
yeah, and we have the evidence. I mean, you can go see,
I don't know
what's
who
your
you
name?
sent it to.
Johanna.
You sent it to Cameo? I mean, who would you have sent it to?
They would send it to the owner of record at the address of record.
It's supposed to be sent to whatever address is on your tax records,
didn't get it.
on a list supplied by the
You're
tax
welcome to come
assessor.
in.
But we do have evidence of that. If you would like to see it, you can come see it.
There's 20 other people here that night.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, please.
Good evening.
25.
Mark Nicer, 22 East Colmore Circle, and a new full-time resident, so I like that idea of tax breaks for full-time residents. Just a couple questions and a comment. First of all, like I said, I think we all appreciate the time that you spend meeting after meeting and working on the master plan. I think what you've heard tonight and what we heard at the meeting last week or the week before is a lot of frustration because of communications. And what I heard the other night also was the commissioner saying, we can't do that, you gotta talk to the planning board, and then a little bit I heard tonight was, that's not our purview, you gotta go talk to the commissioners. So I think it's all communications.
That was minor,
Minor,
what we
yes.
said. I was at the meeting. They pushed it more to
They
us
sure
than we
did.
pushed it back to them.
So just a couple comments. When I read the report that you read, talked about the focus groups and how the public was invited. According to the master plan, they were not invited. There were only 6 groups that were invited, and the public people were not invited to the meeting.
Well, that's not true. I was at those meetings.
Well, you may want to revise the master plan then. Secondly, I know there's a maximum amount of time that you can revise a master plan, but I don't think there's a minimum. I don't think it would be that difficult to take that out of the master plan.
Well, there actually is a lesser time because Sandy changed everything, so we had to redo it with a sustainability issue in mind and
Right.
not wait the full 10 years.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I don't think if you went back and said, we're taking this overlay district or this idea.
I said that would be possible.
That would be possible. I
Yes.
think somebody said it wasn't possible, but I think it's definitely possible, and I don't think it would be $200,000 worth of work. If it was a couple $1,000s, I would be surprised. But I think, again, what you're hearing, one other thing, you mentioned that this is only preliminary,
Which is preliminary?
the master plan and going forward with it. Not
No, no.
preliminary, but it's in the, you said it was in the,
The planning
early
ban's been
stages?
approved. The planning ban has
Okay.
been approved.
Was there a reason that this overlay district was put into ordinance and submitted at this time?
Yes, you have to do that to make it law.
The
Well,
ordinance.
it was just a concept in the master
the-
plan.
Correct.
No, right, the ordinance legitimizes the master plan,
Right.
or makes it,
But there must have been
Legal.
some kind of impetus, some kind of movement to,
Well, the master plan was complete. We want to get the ordinances done.
okay? How
the
about-
master plan needs ordinances to enforce the.
No, I
master
understand
plan.
that.
Right.
Okay. You mentioned that nobody has come forward, Ventura's, or submitted an application to the planning board.
Correct.
Have there been any meetings with Ventura's at the staff level regarding some kind of development there?
I wouldn't know.
Yes, he wanted to replace the glass roof with a wood roof.
I'm referring to the
Oh,
larger facility. Okay, oops, sorry. And just finally, what I'd like to say, there's a new, is that you or me? Okay. There's a new group in town, the Margate Homeowners Association. I'm sure you've heard of them by now. And I think I don't think you would have this many people at a meeting if all of you could get together and maybe improve communications and find a way to let people know better, more about when the meetings are and what you're talking about. I know you're restricted by law as to what you can do, but there's a local paper called The Current. I'm sure the township could put something in.
Let me, excuse me, interrupt you one, because I'm not enforcing the time
Hmm?
at this point. The easiest way to do this, the city presents a free calendar to everybody that has every meeting of every agency. It has trash day is open Wednesdays
Right.
from 1 to 3. It has planning board meetings the last Thursday of the month. It's all on that.
It's a wonderful calendar.
And it's
I have
free.
two of them.
It's free. They
It's a
send them
wonderful
out to
calendar.
everybody.
But when you get to something as important as the master plan or an overlay district, I'm sure the township has a publicist or a communication specialist that could put some kind of notice in the local paper that says, this is important, why don't you come out and join us at this meeting? I think.
Well, you're reiterating what people said. We agree if we could find a way to do that would be legal.
Well,
would
could we
mind.
have,
We have a new newsletter coming out
okay.
more frequently now.
What I'm saying
Yeah,
is,
Margate alone has its own newsletter, but I guess it's going to come out more often than it does.
and what I'm saying is if we could get a commitment from Chairman, to talk to the township and find a way to get, when there's an important, important issue on the agenda, that word gets out in the newsletter, in the Current, or wherever else. And I don't think you'd have these many people at the meeting then.
Let me address that too. And I agree with you, the master plan is the most important issue of all
Right.
this. But we have had people come, especially with the golf course, saying, this is an important issue. And I think it should be put off until the summertime. You're having secret meetings in the winter. We, by law, cannot postpone these meetings because of what time of year it is. We are busy 12 months a year. We don't have open times in the winter that we can have these secret meetings. 12 months a year, we have busy meetings, adding 40 to 50 million in ratables to this town, which is keeping our tax rate down. That's not our purpose, but you tear down a $200,000 house and put up a $1 million house, it increases the ratables. But that is a year-round process. We cannot, and the 10-day notice, another thing that came from the homeowners association was we sneak the notices out on Friday afternoon because then you have the weekend. Well, if you count 10 days back from Thursday, you get to the previous Monday. So if a notice goes out on a Friday, we're given 13 days notice. And again, we don't give any notices, the applicants do. So the latest they can send it out is on a Monday. So some of these, again, accusations are just so far off the wall, it's like, but it gets everybody excited that we are taking kickbacks.
Right,
over
and that's,
this. And again,
again,
I'm just sorry, I get
if-
sensitive when I'm called a criminal.
If the city could improve their communication.
Well, I think the newsletter
That would be
wasn't aware
really
of,
helpful.
The newsletter
I
would
think-
be more helpful.
I don't think most people understand how much time and effort you put into this, and then we come and we scream at you, so.
Well, it's usually pretty enjoyable, and
Yeah.
the nights are going pretty well,
But-
and I appreciate, again, we welcome public comment anytime, nobody ever shows up.
I would just add, either at our December meeting or our January meeting, we put out the regular meeting schedule for
All
the
year.
year. So it's generally the fourth Thursday every month.
Last
Sometimes
Thursday.
sometimes there's a fifth, it'll be the fifth. Sometimes with Thanksgiving, it'll be the third. But you'll know in January every regular meeting date. When the
That will-
agenda's
That will
ready,
be on the calendar.
when the agenda's ready, we'll get them up online.
I think everybody
What-
understands that.
But, so for those, everyone should be aware of what's going on. But I understand what you're saying when things like the master plan or not, meetings that aren't scheduled at the beginning of the year, where we provide the regular notice by law, and it goes in the press of Atlantic City, points taken. I agree with Roger, and he's talking, he mentioned a newsletter, and your point's taken. Sometimes they're, we'll try and get the word out.
Thank you very
as
much.
possible.
Has anyone eaten an orange Tic Tac? Or a Kit Kat? Delicious. They are? Okay, it looks awful, but
I wouldn't eat it.
Rich, if I could say something.
please.
I don't think it's a
I
responsibility.
didn't say what your profession was, I'm sorry. This
I'm re-
is Ron Grupo,
I'm retired military.
retired military.
I don't think it's a responsibility of the board to say what's important and not important. When we have a variance come before us that somebody wants to put their fence 2 feet higher than it needs to be, it's important to the next door neighbor. You guys could care less about it. I say, if it's so important to you and you're so concerned about it, take the 5 or 10 minutes every month it takes, get on the computer, find out when the meeting is, find out what's on the agenda, and if you want to come to it, come to it. Don't put it on us to make it what's important and not important. I'm not asking for.
They're talking about just the master plan, not our,
Not our regular
not our
meetings.
regular.
But
And
the
they
ma-
know when the regular meetings are, it's when different things come up.
I'm not looking for dialogue. I'm just saying, if it's important enough to you, you'll find out about it. My wife could get tickets to Hamilton in 10 minutes on the computer. She can't work the computer any other time. She can make arrangements for anything that needs to be done. And for me to sit here and think that successful people and people that have done well in life cannot take the time or the effort to work their way through the system that's set up is ridiculous.
But they don't know the master plan is happening, so that's the, I
It's
understand the
it's on the
frustration.
website.
Not when they had the meetings to plan it.
They-
It's a personal front for anybody to say that there's.
It's advertised as state law says it has to be, but I don't read those things. The master plan is something that affects everybody. I understand your frustration, but we do what we are instructed to do by law. If there's a better way, we'll do it between the newsletter or whatever. I'm with all you on that side. But it's a catch-22. We do what we're supposed to do, and it's not enough. Again, because I don't read them either. I get called, but I happen to be on the board. Next. Would you like to speak again?
Hi, Mark Olds, 20 South Decatur. Rich or Leo, I don't know which one of you might have said that, but at the commissioners' meeting, they said that we would need to bring it up to the planning board about the possibility of a robocall. Not for fences that are being put up. We're talking about major issues.
You can't distinguish of what's major and what's not major.
Well, I mean, like the hotel overlay or something, the master plan, something as important as that. And somebody up here, I thought, just said, well, we would need to talk to the commissioners, but yet the commissioner said we would need to talk to the planning board. So is there any way to
I don't think the commissioner
work?
said anything about the planning board doing with the robocall.
I think it was brought up as far as possibility of a
I
robocall,
think-
but something, I mean, is there a way that you guys could work together to see if there is a possibility to do
The
that?
robocall would originate from the city, not the planning board. These are all volunteers.
Right, but I mean, if it's something that, I guess, would be coming from the planning board, is there a way to get that out? Mike, you're saying no?
Well, we can't go over or under what the rules are. But I think to do a city newsletter that this is coming up would help that.
Now, would it
But now the
explain,
next guy that we don't do a robocall for, say, wait a minute, you did it for him, but you didn't do it for us. Well, that's important and you're not important. It opens up a can of worms. And again, I wish it could be done. I wish everybody knew everything that was going on. 99% of it's boring. The
is
master
there
plan is
a
not.
possibility of getting it spelled out more on whatever site you're putting it on, not on the press of Atlantic City, but
I think
so
we
that
just
you don't
indicated
say-
that we're willing to do something to make it more.
Yes,
get it
on the
more-
city website and getting the newsletter out. What's it come out now, 6 times a year?
What's that, the press?
The newsletter. Whatever it is.
I don't know.
Apparently, they're going to work to
pretty new.
get that out more often. Now, does a newsletter get mailed to every house, or is it just
No, it's
online?
on site. It's online.
It's on site, but you can sign up for it on site, and I had to sign up for it, and I get the city newsletter. So anybody can sign up for it.
I haven't gotten one, and I know I've signed up twice.
I haven't gotten one in probably 6 months either.
It
you
just
sign up for it?
started again.
It just started again?
Yes.
Well, there wasn't one, so now it's
There wasn't one
starting
for
again.
years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Speak into the microphone if you want to say something.
Is there any special meetings, master plan, whatever, in an upcoming month? Could we make an announcement of such meetings at our regular monthly meeting? A verbal announcement from you?
Actually, during the meetings, I have done that. I've mentioned it at commission meetings, and I've mentioned it at planning board meetings. Stuff about the master plan, ordinances.
Why not at this meeting?
I have.
What's coming up?
In other words, if we know,
Scheduled for the following month. If there's a master plan.
Yes, we can do that.
yeah, we can do that.
Is something coming up next month?
No.
No, I think his point is if we're in
Yeah,
a
it's
meeting
fine.
and we know about something,
Yeah.
yeah, we can make an announcement.
But there's nobody here to hear it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They listen to the tape sometime.
Hi, my name is Rick Clausen. I'm at the 9300 Atlantic Avenue in Margate. I'm the board president of the Shore Club, and I also run our website. And if you'd like, I don't know how I got to know that the meeting was here tonight and what time it was. I think I got it on the website. I'm not sure exactly how, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start fresh. Like I'm just logged on to the site, and I'm going to try to navigate your meetings. And if you want, I could give you a call and give you a suggestion if I have any problems. When I do my website, I just put everything on the homepage. So when you open up to the Shore Club, comes right at you, and my meeting dates are right there. And let me just see how it works, and I'll give you an idea. I'm not going to do it for you though.
No, I understand that, but the planning board doesn't have a website. The city of Margate has a website.
Okay, well, maybe you can what do I do? Contact Margate and tell them what to do with it?
Johanna Casey, she's the one that takes care of it all right.
Okay, I'll do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate the website. I'm going to see how difficult it is to get into you, to see when one of your meetings is scheduled for.
Trust me, a couple things were fixed today.
Hmm?
A couple things were fixed today.
Okay.
But one of the things that we do, which I don't know of any other town, there's too many towns for me to say.
Mhm.
Tomorrow morning or tomorrow at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you're going to be able to hear this entire meeting. We publicize it immediately. Other towns charge for transcripts. They delay getting it out there.
You have an audio, don't you, too?
Yes.
Okay.
Within a day, we put everything out there of everything that was done. So, and that's unusual. So, I mean, that's something that's not restricted by law. That's something we do. So anything that we do, you can find out immediately what we've
I
done.
also think what I hear is that maybe if there's something you can put on there that will get me to drive 70 miles to come to this meeting, from my home in Riverton. Maybe that's what some people are asking too, but whatever.
We don't provide escorts, sir. I'm sorry.
I know that. All right, what I'll do is I'll call up Ms. Casey, and if there's anything I think needs to be done, needs to be improved on it, make it easier to get to your site, I'll give her a suggestion.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next. Yes.
Emily Zayden, 6 South Decatur Avenue. I just want to clarify. We know you have monthly meetings, okay? I go on Monday and I look at your site and I see what the agenda is. From month to month, they're mundane, they're boring, they're typical.
Tell me about
it. Okay, and that's not, again, our issue. It really isn't. It's with the huge things that come up,
But we
like
have
the
to
master
use the
plan.
same procedures
I
for
understand
every
that.
meeting.
I just, but
Right.
I'm hearing, well, take the time to go onto the agenda and look it up. If you're interested, show up. That's not what it's about. It truly isn't. We just want better communication on the major things that affect the entire community of Margate.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Anyone else? I hear a motion to close public portion? Really? Public portion is closed. Okay. No, I want to, Eric Goldstein's here, I want to restrict how much he talks. All right, no, yeah, I absolutely, I welcome the questions, I welcome the criticism, and we're now going to hear some cases. If you want to hear the boring, mundane cases, you're welcome to stay. But you are not allowed to cheer, you are not allowed to boo. I'm going to do that second one first. Yes.
Huh? Yeah, I'm just gonna go lift real quick. Right back.
Want to go to this one? No, say in your opinion, we can go, I've got, what he says, I'm going to defer to you and you say my opinion before you go to case. The next meeting is secret, so you all have to leave.
Just kidding.
We're going a little out of order here. We're going to hear 205 North Douglas first. Michael Silverman. It's Block 404.03, Lot 5, in the S25 district to grant C variance relief for side yard setback and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaurin, will you be sworn in?
Mr. McLaurin, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. The report is based on Michael and Debbie Silverman, their application at 205 North Douglas Avenue, Block 404.03, Lot 5, which is in the zone S25. They're in FEMA AE zone elevation 8 for the effective firm, meaning the bottom of the first floor has to be at elevation 11. Zoning height starts at elevation 12. They are requesting one C variance, and that's for a side yard setback for minimum. I'll keep this short and brief. They're taking a fully compliant house, and they want to shift it over 2 feet to the left to provide a wider drive aisle for the driveway. It's something I've been advocating for quite a while, is more room for a driveway so people can open their car doors. Of course, he's under the same requirements as anyone else to justify the C variances. It's not a hardship, it's a C2 criteria. 205. He just announced there's a
I
change.
just announced a change in the agenda. Look forward, don't look at me again during the meeting. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So as with any other new application, they have to comply with the landscape requirements, number of trees. And my one suggestion is that the London plane tree should be recommended to match existing trees on that street. And a grass governor strip, which is part of the new ordinance that will be later read tonight. That'll be a requirement. I'm recommending they put one in. That's in the ordinance revisions on for tonight to be changed.
Do you understand the governance strip along the curb?
Between the sidewalk and...
Between the sidewalk and the curb needs
Right.
to be a grass strip.
2 trees.
With 2 trees in it.
So basically, you are tasked tonight to justify your variance if the benefits outweigh the detriments.
Okay.
So it's up to you.
Sure. Thank you.
May I interrupt, please?
Yes.
I don't think we should be hearing this case. In my
Speak
opinion-
into the microphone, please.
In my opinion, this is an improperly prepared set of plans for the house, which we should never have accepted. Back in 2015, this board unanimously voted not to any longer accept such plans. And Stan Bergman was our chairman.
I
have
was
a
your
copy
chairman.
of his letterhead.
I was your chairman.
He was our solicitor, and we have honored that.
Okay, well, I'll-
Up
again,
until
as I
this
told
time.
you, I will defer to our attorney. Can we hear this case tonight?
I believe the variance plan is signed and sealed by a licensed surveyor in the state of New Jersey. It shows the one variance.
Licensed surveyors cannot sign building plans.
Leo, can we hear this case?
My thought is that if the board, I don't know what was going on in 2015, so
We had a
I'll
better
say that. You might have had a better attorney. But if you have enough, if the board feels that they have enough information before them to make an informed decision, it's one variance that's requested, I'm okay with it going forward. If the builder submitted improper plans, then whatever,
Department will take care of it.
correct, or whatever punishments he's
Is
subject
this a
to.
modular home?
This is a modular home,
Okay,
yes.
all right, proceed.
So, thank you.
Swear
We,
me.
Mr. Silverman, I just have to swear you in. Can you state your name and address for the record?
yeah, Mike Silverman, 205 North Douglas.
And you swear affirm the
Local.
testimony you're about to, I'm sorry?
The local address.
Okay. You
Yes.
swear affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Speak in
And
the
you-
microphone, please.
Sure.
And you said that this was a
There's a hand
modular
out there.
home, correct?
This is a modular home
There's
project.
a handheld microphone, it'll be easier for you.
Okay. So we bought our home, the existing home, about 20 years ago, hoping to just create a lot of memories for the kids when they were little. You know, retiring down here has always been a plan for us. You know, the house is, you know, obviously it's aging. We've got a couple weddings coming up, one tomorrow night, and we're expecting 2 extra women in the house on a regular basis, and not enough space. We were originally looking to redesign the existing and reno, but because of the rules of Sandy, we, you know, were not at the right elevation, so we chose to go down the path of building. Modular was more inexpensive for us, so we went down that path. The objectives for us, I mean, as it was stated, you know, we're looking just to slide the house over to the one side by a couple feet. The overriding goals for us are expanding the driveway space from 10.5 feet to 12.5 feet. It also opens up the backyard further than would be existing. Second is reducing the side setbacks and try to do fair and right by both neighbors. You know, living, you know, by the actual code, and, you know, the house would literally move 5 feet to one side, 1 foot to the other. The variance allows it to basically evenly split 3 feet to each side.
So you'll be equally far from each house on the sides, is that what you're saying?
No, not equally far from each side, but the change is equidistance. So the house itself, the footprint of the house actually goes wider. We're shallower because of code, but we're wider. And, you know, if we stayed within code, our setback, you know, the 8 and 10 foot setback would take away 5 feet from the right side neighbor, 1 foot from the left side neighbor. So in moving it over, we then, you know, moving it 2 feet,
The encroachment is the same for each neighbor?
the encroachment is
Got
the
it.
same for both neighbors, yes. In terms of, you know, the benefits to the neighbors themselves, the neighbor to the right is one of the legacy bungalow homes. They're literally 3 feet from my property line. So this opens up the airspace between the afternoon sun. They get more of that with the house pushed back a little further. The neighbor to the left, you know, we lose a foot. They do pick up because of the the rear setback. You know, right now I'm at 5 feet. We'll be at 12.5 feet back. So there'll be additional morning sun passing, you know, by the house, which, you know, is not, you know, doing as much today. Neighbors across the street, you know, they'll benefit from the same symmetry, you know, visually that we have today. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I might have done myself an injustice by representing myself and not having an attorney, but I just looked at this as something, you know, very, you know, straightforward, and, you know, that's my story.
This is a,
Questions?
yeah. we look at the overall picture. You only need that one variance, but there's also give and take here. I just have, we look at Margate differently than Ocean City. We have more greenery, we need trees, we have different things that if you go through Stone Harbor and the beautiful places down there, you see rocks and cement and sand all over the place. This is something we have always frowned upon. A big blank wall facing your neighbor's house. I'm not an architect, these aren't architectural plans, but isn't there a way, I looked at a place, you could put 3 more windows in here without hurting anything. I mean, to have a big blank wall like that is offensive to neighbors. I mean, is there any way you think you could?
We had, we had looked at it. In the front of the house, the possibility is it's a dining room. And, with the open layout, originally there was a window there. With the open layout, we're just feeling uncomfortable about the lack of wall space. And we thought that would, enhance the interior of the house
The
picture-wise.
whole side of the house, there's no window.
Sorry?
The whole side of the house, the one little window. Is
Yes.
there any other place you could put? I'm asking, I can't force you to do anything, you can do what you want.
Upstairs, there's one bedroom where we could, move around a window.
Just a little more depth to the side of the house.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah.
this is up to you, I'm
I
just saying
understand.
that that's a concern that we have.
And that's fair. I appreciate that.
Could we put a condition in that you would add 2 more windows to that side of that house? Is your choice of where they be? It's up to you.
My guiding partner isn't here tonight, but, I mean, if it's a condition, it's a condition. What's that? I know. Not a good move. I know.
Mike Cristoli's his name, that your wife can call him?
Yes, yeah.
I have a question, sir. The setback on the house itself. It's good.
Right.
The porch is 917. Oh, what do you have? On the front. Okay, I didn't see it on that. The 200-foot setback. Not to, Mike, to the house, from the front line, from the front. What is the house in question? I'm wondering what the house in question is. You have a porch setback of 9.17, and I was wondering what the house is. I didn't see it on this print.
Look at my report. It's indicated on mine.
It's indicated on Roger's report.
Right here. That doesn't tell you what this house is.
But you meet all coverage, all landscaping requirements, meet all other requirements other than shifting the house over a foot or 2 feet.
Correct.
I also didn't see an elevation on this print of the height of the first floor.
The height of the first floor is on the first floor.
On the site plan, it's 11 feet, 88.
Are you referring to the house or the?
I thought it had to be 12 feet.
Right there, correct.
It just shows an
Right there.
elevation when he comes in for his building permit, his building permit.
Right.
This will be based on 12.
12. It will have to meet code, it'll have to meet FEMA requirements, which is 12 feet.
Understood.
Yes, it will be.
When he comes in for his foundation permit, it'll be on that plan. It'll be on the zoning plans that I permit.
Roger, I have a question on the concrete strips. Are we locating them in the center of that 12-foot 5-inch?
They're not shown that way.
Looks like he has room for landscaping on the side.
Right, he has it up against the house on the one side.
Right.
I was just wondering, are we locating the strips anywhere? You know what I mean? The center in the driveways that we're proposing, the 10-foot wide driveways?
He's showing it where it's against the house, which he's
I know,
allowed to do.
I know. Well, a lot of times, people don't know, they pull in on the concrete strip, and they can't open their doors, and they don't go all the way back towards their houses. What I'm saying is if the.
As part of tonight's,
But that's a design issue, that comes up when the.
Right, I mean,
building's done. I don't see that.
the problem is, if you pull that concrete strip away from the house, they put in,
Then
it's
you
gonna
gotta
be
put
like
grass.
6 inches wide, and it's gonna be stone, you're not allowed stone, you can't put grass in there, because you're not gonna water it.
You can't get out. I see it all the time, they cross the street from my.
He's gonna have a 12.5-foot driveway, he'll get out.
If anything, he can move it closer to the property line.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do.
Well, that's his option. He complies with zoning either way.
Anything else from the board?
Mr. Silverman, you're going to need a
And as-
engineer? Wait, can I, Mr. Silverman, you're going to need an engineer for your footing and foundation because you're building in a flood zone? Yes.
Working with an architect in Toms River, where they're recommended by the modular company.
Okay,
So it's in process now.
all right.
If there's nothing else from the board, you have anything else?
No.
I'd like to open up to the public to discuss this case. You need, in this case, you need to state your name and address, and you need to be sworn in before you speak.
Okay. Name is Ed Shell. I'm at 207 North Douglas Avenue, neighbor of Mike's.
Mr. Shell, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
S-H-E-L-L?
S-C-H-E-L-L.
I knew
for
that. Thank
asking.
you.
It's with a heavy heart, and I say that very sincerely, that I actually want to oppose the variance that Mike wants to make with the house.
Are you directly next door?
He's directly next door.
Facing the house, which side are you on?
If you face the house, we are on the left. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was not an easy decision. Mike's a good neighbor. I hope him to remain a good neighbor. I believe the plan is to bring the house in 2 feet closer to our property line. And there are 2 main reasons why my wife and I are opposed to it. We do barbecues on that side. We've just cut down a tree this summer. We've been meaning to do this for several years. We finally got it cut down. We have our barbecue on that side of the house with table. We plan to do and eat outside in that area. And we like the space that's there today. I think we have 8 feet, 9 feet, whatever it is today. Having a house closer, I think would close us off a little bit more, and we would appreciate that space less. Also, in talking with, I think the clincher for me was in talking to some real estate agents, they said that you would lower the value of your property by having that coming over. They said you should absolutely think about not doing that, and for those 2 reasons, that's what I've got.
Did you discuss this with your neighbor?
We've talked through the summer about it. Mike has showed me the plans. We never gave him an answer on it. Still thinking about it, quite honestly, towards the end of the summer. Wasn't until within the last couple of weeks, me and my wife, came to a decision on it. And I think Mike's hearing it for the first time here. He probably, it's probably a surprise to him. But that's...
Well, it's just if you talk maybe and
Into
said,
the
would you settle
microphone,
for...
please, sir.
What's the question?
Just sometimes when you talk, you say, would you accept 1 foot instead of 2 feet? Could we do this? This is my reasons. And that's just why it's good to talk to the neighbors ahead of time.
Right.
You don't have to, but
No, he did, and we were talking through it, and it originally was 4 feet, and talked through it. We did.
it's 2 feet now, right?
It was originally, I think there was, things had changed, whatever.
Okay.
It's 2 feet now.
Right.
It was a hard decision. I'm here, and I didn't want to come here for the sake of, I just don't like doing this. I don't like the confrontation. It's not me. But to be fair to myself and to my wife and what we thought about and what we're asking, this is what we want for our property. And I hate that I have to bring it here, but that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's all I got. Thank you.
I'm sorry if you weren't done.
Oh, no, I was done.
Oh, okay.
Unless you have questions of me.
How about if I flip it?
What?
Flip the house, so flip the driveway towards him. It's up to the applicant.
So then you would have a driveway right up to your property line.
Yeah, then his driveway would be right on your property line.
But it's legal to do that, right?
That's not
Yep.
fair to the neighbor on the other side.
He's not here.
What's the distance that's needed for a driveway? I mean, I don't know.
Well, he's asking for 12 and a half feet. He has 10 and a half feet.
Right. I guess that's up, but it's,
But then it's not grass, then it's a driveway with a car parked in it and everything.
right.
They have separation.
Roger, what's our new code for
In the
10 feet.
microphone, please.
10.
Okay,
And it has to be a foot off
Thank
the
you.
property line.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mr. Silverman, you want to come back up?
How much higher is the house?
the first
Grade.
floor?
Yeah, from grade that it is now.
How many steps to your house now?
We've got 3 steps and then 1 extra to the porch, and then it's 1 extra step to the first floor of the house. So I believe we're gonna be about 3 feet higher than
Higher than it
currently what it
presently
is
is.
today, yeah.
It's on the survey.
6 steps.
Right, so you got 3 foot higher and 2 foot.
Well, and, you know, the shape of the house, the way that the house is cut today, the point of the roof runs left to right. So I really have that big peak on that side. The new design, it's kind of flipped the other way, so I don't, you know, visually on that side of the house, it will appear lower. You still have the peak, but it's a different, you know, you know, visually it might look the same. And I don't have any 3D stuff.
Just, if I could just ask, to clear me up, maybe you've said this already, if you did, I apologize, but the intent of moving it over 2 feet, I mean, you don't need the 2 feet to have a driveway. So-
No.
So
No.
what is your, what is your hardship that you're coming here asking us to let you move it for?
It's not a hardship.
So it's not.
It's not a hardship,
It
Dennis?
really, no, it's not a hardship. There's 3 things that are there. One is the neighbor to the right, there's 3 feet there. So he's tight to my you know, his physical home is tight to my property.
That's,
To your
that's not
property
this
line, but
neighbor,
not
that's
to
the
No,
other
your
that's
house.
it's the other side.
Right.
And then, you know, the existing house, and this is, you know, more of a design thing for us. The existing house, we have, you know, some nice backyard space, and then a small porch. And, you know, in trying to maximize the interior, you know, dealing with the, you know, the new setback requirements, you know, we were hoping to just maintain as much backyard space as we could, as well as have, you know, a more functional driveway.
I'm confused though. How do you lose backyard space by not moving the house over?
So
Right.
the way that the house is set today, there's, I don't have it in front of me, I think we've
No,
got like.
the new house I'm talking about.
Oh,
You're
the-
saying you'll have more backyard space if you move the house sideways.
So, yes, because, you know, well, we call it backyard. It's actually side yard. The side yard space
Okay.
we use as backyard, I'm sorry.
All right,
Like your neighbor does,
like the neighbor does.
like the neighbor does.
Yes.
Can you guys come to a compromise and maybe bring something up there, 7 feet?
I know initially when, yeah,
7 feet versus 6. He's asking for 6. He's asking for 6, and would 7 like work for both of you?
all right, I mean, you know, initially we were,
Nice wide driveway, 2
we, you know, you know, initially, you know, when we presented it and we talked about it, you know, I was looking to move it, you know, north of 3 feet. You know, the initial response was, you know, hey, would you like to just split it? And you know, my initial response honestly was, if I'm gonna go through the time and the expense, I'd like to try to do the whole thing. And then as we.
You tried.
Well, no, actually, I didn't. I did come back, and that's where I can't, you know, where we end up settling on the 2 feet. I looked at it and said, hey, visually, it's 3 feet to one neighbor, it's 3 feet to the other neighbor. You know, just, you know, trying to find a balance point, literally for both neighbors, ourselves, the folks across the
The
street.
problem you have, if you look at your diagram, your house shadow
Right.
is actually 12.5 feet on your neighbor to the ocean side, and it's only 6 feet to your neighbor on the, because of the driveway. So you have no, even though your property lines are 3 feet,
Right.
it's all open ground. So you're actually taking a structure going way up and jamming it against this gentleman and saying it's equally distant because with the driveway, that's all open air and light space to the other one. It's really not, you're not comparing apples to apples as far as I'm concerned.
I understand.
And I think that you're asking a little too much. You're putting that big house on top of him, which is gonna take away light, air, open space, and you're infringing on his house, just so you can have a larger driveway and a yard area. So you might wanna consider, you know, an option. I think these guys think you're a great option right there.
Yes, and that's where.
No, you have to come up to the microphone.
That was our feeling too. I mean, I'm glad you said it, and it wasn't just me stating it, but there was kind of that feeling of just having this house moved over, feeling like we're giving up something. And on top of that, with the real estate, people, a couple we've talked to said, you know, they'd recommend against it, you know, try to keep your space. That's what I got.
Would you
But-
be
but
willing to
That property's coming over and it's.
agree to
right
a
up.
1 foot instead of a 2 foot?
Does it have to be here at this meeting?
Yes,
It has to be right now.
Wait a minute. Neither wives are up here, so you're both in the same position.
You can't phone a friend?
Can ask the audience.
I'd give him the opportunity too. But, yeah, I would very much like to discuss that with my wife, you know.
Well, you don't have that luxury. We're just asking, will you both agree to 7 feet? I mean, the boards, would like you neighbors to compromise and be friends when it's all over.
So here's my question. 7 feet, 6, you want to come 6, go 7. Well, I'm trying to understand, might be understand this too. You know, you're 7 from me, but you're 12 from, it'd be 11 and a half from the other side.
But that's a function of having a driveway on one side. You can't,
Okay.
you have to live with that.
Right.
Sir, the maximum you could get is 8 feet.
Right.
He's asking for 6. Maximum you could have is, you could get is 8.
Yeah, I thought that was by.
So we're talking 7.
Right. I do.
It's between you two. If you don't, he asks for 8 feet. If you say you want 6 feet, whatever it is,
I don't want to be in the doghouse when I get home, but that's between me and my wife here.
okay, well, then you're not agreeing, so.
Well, yeah. How much? What is it now?
And then you got the side with no windows.
Yeah, windows.
Huh? You don't have to agree with us. We're just asking you if you would, and you have, your wife's not here, so it's a kind of yes or no.
I want to say no at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And what about you? Are you willing to go 7 feet instead of 8 feet or 6 feet? Well, it's a yes or a no. I just want to know, would you like to amend the application to 7 feet instead of 6 feet?
Speak into one of the.
There's 2 microphones.
I think I'd, prefer to stay where we are.
Okay.
I feel like the 3 feet on both sides tries to be fair across.
We're not forcing anything on you, but we have to ask the question.
Just so you know too, and maybe I'm wrong with, Leo could explain this, that if you say no and then we vote and you get turned down, you can't come back again. Okay.
So
Because it's,
let me
he
understand
could.
here with this decision that I don't understand the protocol here.
No, go ahead, finish.
Oh, okay. If I'm saying no here and it's done, is that decision final? And
As far as what he's requesting, he could come back with a different application, so if he votes on 6-foot setback, and if for whatever I don't know how that works.
You mean 7 versus 6, I'm sorry.
Can he come back with
You
a
could,
mic or
yes.
things like that?
Yes,
You can?
let's be different.
There are some cases that suggest that moving a setback 1 foot takes you out of the res judicata, which is the legal document, and would be considered a new application. I can't make that determination unless it's really before us at the time. Could he come back with the identical application if it's denied? No.
With the identical, I got you.
No, he couldn't. Could he come back with something different? Yes, but we would have to assess that at the time, whether it
Well,
is
so we
different.
know 8 feet, we know 6 feet isn't going to work here tonight, so we would have to come back anyway.
No,
We don't know that.
anything.
We don't know that.
It's the board's decision.
Okay.
And you could say
All right.
your 7 foot's okay, he could say no, and vice versa.
Right.
But we just want to hear, if there's 2 of you agreed on it, it would make it a lot easier that the neighbors are happy. But you haven't agreed on it, so that's fine.
At this, I'm going to have to say, and at this point in time, with where I'm at and what I can do, I'm going to say no.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Anyone else in the public here to comment? Public portion is closed.
If this lot was 40 feet wide, it'd be a 5-foot setback would be permitted.
If the lot was 40 feet wide, you would only need a 5-foot setback, not an 8-foot setback.
Yes, you can.
Would you turn around? Chairman in his own mind.
Do you have any
He needs
conditions?
a variance tonight, correct.
Can we vote on this?
We can, except Mr. Silverman, what did we decide about those windows? Because I have to frame a motion in the affirmative. He's going to put 2 more, so there'll be 3 total on
Agreed
that
to
side?
the condition.
I don't know if you affirmative.
You agreed to a condition of putting 2 more windows on that side.
Yes, we would put 2 more
Yes.
windows in the bedroom.
Yes.
And you read Mr. McLaren's report, and you agree with everything in there, correct? As far as the governor's strip and the planting of the 2
Oh, yeah,
trees?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we need a motion for C variance relief for a side yard setback of 6 feet where 8 feet's required. Conditions would be that those contained in Mr. McLaren's report of September 27, 2008, which include but aren't limited to installing a governor strip with 2 trees, and also, which is not in the report, I don't believe, but it'll be a separate condition, the applicant will add 2 more windows to that side of the house where there's only 1 currently shown.
I'll make that motion.
What'd you say?
Is that Satan? I don't know who
I don't know who that was. And those would be subject to Mr. McLaren's approval, normal size windows.
Jimmy made the motion. Any second?
I'll second.
Tom second.
Tom Collins?
I got my mic right here. I'm good, Jim. You know, it's unfortunate. I wish for 12 inches that you had have decided to slide the house back over. I think 6 feet to that side is just way too tight. Like I said in my comment, the air, the light, the open space, you're just infringing too much on the neighbor. And having all the extra space with the driveway on the other side, it was very reasonable request for 12 inches. 12 inches is 12 inches. I just can't see it, so I vote no.
Is that a no? Clem Wozleski?
As I said, I don't think we should be here in this case because it's an improper submission. And I was not going to participate. However, after listening to the testimony, I do want to jump back in. I think the neighbor has very valid concerns in this situation. This closeness to the property line would have very negative effect on his property. And I support his position. I vote no on the application.
Rich Patterson?
Well, the problem here, I don't see as much as moving the house 2 feet too close, as much as I think Tom recognized the house is going to be up a lot higher, and he's on the, right, the shadow will be cast whether it was 6 feet or 8 foot, that you're going to lose that. I am rather surprised that neither the neighbor nor the applicant was willing to compromise at 12 feet and make it easier on all of us, I mean, at 12 inches, and make it easier on all of us. But in this case, I think I have to vote no, that you have room on the other side to move it over. I would have liked to see you have a bigger driveway, 11 and a half instead of 12 and a half, but that you all put that out of the question, so I have to vote no on this.
Mike Cristaldi?
As the other board members, I wish they could have come to an agreement there, but the air light does come into effect on this, as Tom stated, so I just wish you said, I vote no.
Jim Galantino?
I think if he flipped the house and just put the driveway towards his neighbor, he would have been a good neighbor and they would have been friends. And I didn't see any way he was showing the variance was going to work, so I vote no.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I do not see that this meets the C2 criteria. The proposed variance, I don't think it advances the use of our municipal land use law. We are taking away a lot of light. Benefits do not outweigh the detriments, and I have to vote no.
Mike Richmond?
I agree with the other board members. There's no hardship. 10 and a half feet is tight, but it's still a decent sized driveway from Margate. So I really didn't get any, I'm gonna vote.
Okay, the application does not pass 0 to 7.
Next case is 100 North Decatur, LLC, 9211 Winchester Avenue, Block 326, Lot 48, in the multifamily district, to grant site plan approval and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLarnin?
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. Report is in regard to 100 North Decatur Avenue, LLC, Block 326, Lot 48. They're here for preliminary and final site plan approval. The application is variance-free. They meet the use requirements, lot area requirements, density requirements, lot width, lot depth, front yard porch, front yard building. It's a corner property, so there's 2 front yards, no rear yards. They meet all the minimum side yard requirements. It's strictly MF zone zoning requirements. A lot of times, we've been seeing in front of the board where the density requirements aren't being met, so they trigger the single-family, 2-family zoning chart requirements. It's not the case tonight. Since it's a site plan, it's engineering heavy, so I defer to the engineering plan for the engineering report for the application. They are asking the following waivers, preliminary site plan. One is stormwater management plan is not required. I agree with that. Road profiles, road cross sections are not required as there is no new street proposed. I agree with that. Curbing and sidewalk will be replaced as shown on the plans. Fine. Additional waivers are for final major site plan where, again, road profiles, and these are checklist items 10, 11, 12, 13. Final approval being sought at the same time with preliminary approval. I agree. Item number 17, they will provide a letter from the fire department to be submitted as a condition of approval. I agree with that. That should be a condition. There's no other comments. However, they must, instead of a bond in Margate, we have a street opening permit for all the improvements. The square foot is all the improvements within the public right-of-way. I think they would have to agree to that as a condition of approval. Actually, they would have no choice. That's it for my report at this time. Again, it's engineering report driven, so I think they ought to address the engineer's report. Chairman?
Yes?
I think he's ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant, 100 North Decatur LLC. With me this evening are the preparers of the actual site plan, Mr. William McManus, Duffy, Dulce, McManus, and Resch. I'm going to have them qualified in a second, along with John Obelenis, who is the architect for the project. As Mr. McLarnin stated, this is a preliminary and final major site plan, no variances. So with regard to the structure itself, Mr. Obelenis is here to answer questions, but I suppose that Mr. McManus will be doing the bulk of the testimony, as it is engineering heavy, but just want to make sure that it is perfectly clear. We're not asking for any density, we're not asking for any setbacks. We've designed a site, and because there are 5 units on this site, we need to come here for site plan. Any more than 2, we'd have to be here for site plan. So with that being said, Mr. McManus, if you don't mind, I know you've testified before this board many times, but still like to qualify you as an expert. So would you please just tell the board a little about yourself briefly? You've been here a while, and we'll...
Bill, I'm just going to swear you in real quick. Just state your name and business address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Bill McManus. I'm a licensed land surveyor, licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. Business address is 634 Lost Pine Way, Galloway Township, New Jersey. And the firm is Duffy, Dulce, McManus, and Resch.
And you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
Mr. McManus, you were retained by the applicant to prepare a site plan to show 5 units, 5 habitable units within the MF zone, which site plan you have prepared. If you don't mind, please, would you walk the board through what you've prepared and explain to them how this meets Margate's definition of a major site plan, as we're seeking both preliminary and final approval.
Very well. Mr. Chairman, again, members of the board, good evening.
I don't
Rather than-
want to, Eric, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think you were about to qualify him real
sorry.
quick.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I'll just go ahead very briefly. Licensed land surveyor in the state of New Jersey, licensed planner. I've been a land surveyor for 31 years. I've been a planner for 30 years. I'm a principal in the firm of Duffy, Dulce, McManus, and Resch. I've provided testimony before this board, not recently, however, but many boards throughout the state of New Jersey, and have given testimony on plans like this and similar plans like this.
We'll accept his qualifications.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you,
We're lucky
Mr.
to have
Chairman.
you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, okay, members of the board, I'd rather not walk you around the site because of the lateness of the evening. We'll take a jog real quick. The property is located at the northwest corner of Winchester and Decatur Avenue. Across the street, across Decatur Avenue is the city playground. To the south, across Winchester Avenue, are some single-family homes. We are immediately adjacent to the north and to the west to multi-family dwellings, condominiums, and apartment complexes of multiple heights. The property currently is vacant. As of about a year ago, there was a single-family home on the property with a large swimming pool that occupied about 80% of the lot with respect to lot coverage. Currently, as I say, the property is vacant. I'm referring to A1 I've marked with today's date. It's the cover sheet that we submitted with the application that's before you. Typical cover sheet contains the things that are necessary by ordinance and by law. The zoning charts, as Mr. McLaren and Mr. Goldstein has already indicated, that you'll notice we are seeking no variances. We meet all of the setback requirements, all the bulk requirements of the ordinance. We meet and exceed with respect to this particular plan, and that goes for use and density and floor area ratio, as well as the bulk requirements with respect to setbacks and coverage. So we have a fairly clean application, I believe, before you. Most of the testimony tonight will be rendered with respect to the practical application of the site. Having said that, we've marked in advance the plan that was submitted with the application as A2 with today's date. This is the site plan. Very simply, we have an L-shaped type building with frontage on Decatur and Winchester Avenue. The building is accessed from Decatur Avenue as required by your ordinance. There are 5 units within the building. 4 of the units are 4 bedrooms. 1 of the units is 3 bedrooms. Mr. Obelenis, our architect, will be happy to walk you through each and every one of the units, as well as the floor elevations, if you so desire. We have access off of Decatur Avenue through concrete driveway strips. We have sufficient parking on the property with respect to the residential site improvement standards that were issued by the state of New Jersey. Those particular standards with respect to parking are also aligned with Margate City Ordinance. So we are in compliant with the parking requirements, not only of the city, but of the state. We have a optional, shown on this plan, an optional swimming pool and a deck to the rear of the property. The developer wanted to show that so that we could show the maximum impervious coverage that would be anticipated by this site. As I mentioned, the building that was previously there as of about a year ago, a single-family home and a pool, occupied about 80% of the lot. This particular plan with the swimming pool and the deck and the building and the driveways occupies just a little over 62%. So we actually have a reduction in the impervious coverage on this particular property.
And that's if the pool would be built, which we're not sure it will be. If it's not built, obviously, that number goes way up.
The number goes way down, the impervious coverage number. That's right.
Total coverage.
Correct, total open area
On that,
coverage goes
on
up.
that point, how do you split the pool? How would that work? A community pool for
It's a
those?
community, if it were built, the pool would be a community amenity for everyone who lives within the complex. If, it's not going to be for any one of the unit owners, it would be for all of the unit owners.
So these are condos or townhouses or what?
Townhomes.
They're townhomes.
Right.
So there's no common property except for the pool would be common property?
The walls, the roof would be common property, but as far as within the development itself, there's some green space that somebody could put chairs out, but. Yeah, well, there'll be a master deed for the townhomes. It won't be zero lot line within the plan, yeah.
Are they going to be condo ownership?
At this point, not 100% sure. I would imagine it'll be condo ownership based on a percentage of the whole, meaning whatever, The 4 bedrooms will all be the same, and I guess the 3-bedroom, but you're right.
Can I was actually thinking the same thing, trying to figure out the separation, and just following your Kate and the fences, and just picturing how it's gonna look. Where's the chain link fence? Because I can't figure out where that's at.
Chain link
Where is that being
fence.
used? It's in the key, and I'm trying to see if it's around the pool, or is that like at the back end
Well,
of the
we
property?
show a fence around the swimming pool.
Is that the
as we-
chain fence, or is
Well,
that?
no, not necessarily. It could be any material. We're suspecting probably a vinyl or a wood fence
Right.
at that point in time. Yeah,
It won't be a chain link fence. no.
yeah. Good question. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's about it with respect to the presentation of the property. Fairly simple, straightforward. If you have questions about the architecture, John's here to answer those. With respect to the Mr. McLaren's report, we have no issue with any of the comments that he makes. We're more than happy to comply with each and every one of them. And also with respect to Remington and Vernick's report, the engineering aspect of the report, there's really not a whole lot of engineering. We have a grading plan that we've submitted that apparently is sufficient with respect to getting the water where it needs to go. There are some questions about the sidewalk. We've made those additions or revisions to the plan. We resubmitted to Remington and Vernick, who seem to be satisfied with that. We're going to reconstruct the sidewalk across the front of the entire property. We're redoing the handicap access ramp at the intersection to be compliant with ADA requirements. We have a fairly extensive landscaping plan. We have 61 plants, trees, and shrubs that we're putting on the property, all in accordance with your ordinance, shade trees along the Governor Strip that we're going to be creating on Winchester Avenue, which is not there now. And of course, the sidewalk will meet all the ADA requirements relative to cross-sectional slopes and access and those types of technical issues. So there's a couple of comments in the report. We're more than happy to meet those comments and submit some additional plans.
Sir, the driveways on the Decatur Avenue side, that's about 70 or 80 feet of driveway?
Enough to accommodate the 5 buildings, correct?
5 buildings?
Yeah, we have the,
And 14 cars will be parked underneath, correct?
well, 14 cars not necessarily underneath. We have 5 cars will be parked along the open driveway from the curb line. or
Which
from the
still
property
have to
line
back
street.
out across the sidewalks?
They'll have to back out across the sidewalk, as just about every single-family home in the city has to do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the playground across the street.
Yeah, the playground is fenced in. There's no access immediately from the playground area to this particular location.
It's just a safety issue I'm thinking of. you know?
Absolutely.
Luckily that if there's a problem, the police station's right next door, of course, so.
Yeah, but that's after the fact. That's after the fact.
We don't want that
I'm also concerned a little bit about, it used to be a 3 bedrooms. Now we're putting 20 bedrooms there.
19.
Well, one could be considered a bedroom. It's a study bedroom.
You know, understanding all that, and we certainly do.
We're going from 3 to 20 bedrooms.
That's in your ordinance. That,
Did
you know, we're allowed to do it.
Did you
so-
think about putting 3 units there or anything larger?
You know, honestly, no. It was the.
Max it out. We're maxed out.
Well, I guess maxed out would be to ask for a
We're
variance for
maxed
a
out.
higher density.
Right,
but
we're maxed
it's-
out.
That's as dense as we can go. Without a variance, correct.
Just in tune with that location at Decatur, I believe it's a 2-way right there, just that one strip.
Correct.
Where the playground's out, yeah.
Correct.
Anything else?
Mr. Obelenis is here if you would like to discuss the architecture. You know, really, that's an issue that's going to go before Mr. Galantino and Mr. McLaren. We're seeking now the ability to build this based upon what was submitted. It does comply with the MLUL as a site plan, your ordinance as a site plan. Taking the board's concern into consideration, we get it, but at the same time, it does comply with everything. It's no different than if a single-family house was going to be put on a single-family lot to max that out. It's a maxed out site, Mr. Palmisano, but that's what your ordinance allows. Correct.
Excuse me.
Mr. Wozleski's correct again. You know, we're talking about, it is quantity, but that's the size of the lot divided by the number of square feet per living.
What do you
unit.
come up with per unit, 22, what?
What's that?
2,200 feet?
You're allowed one dwelling unit per 2,200 square feet.
And you have more than that per one dwelling
Yes, I
unit?
do. They have 22.
So it's not that,
Slightly.
22, something like
over 2,200?
Correct, not enough to put 6 units there, but
Right.
enough to put 5.
Right.
Correct.
So then you maxed it out?
That's right.
All right, are you done?
Yes.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to, Mr. Giesecke, would you like to come up and talk about trees? Okay. Public portion is closed.
And, Bill or Eric, can you just run through on the Remington Vernick report, which waivers, it's on the second page, it's which waivers you're actually requesting and which ones you're going to supply under sections A and B? Just for purposes of when we get to the motion, it's on the second page.
Sure.
Certain are obvious. I see stormwater management plan waivers requested, circulation plan waivers requested. Number 3.
Okay. I'll be happy to go through these, and we're referring to the memo that was issued September 18th by Remington and Vernon. There was 2 memos. This is the second one that was issued subsequent to our subsequent plans. And as Mr. Manis indicated, under Section A, number 1 is stormwater management. We don't need stormwater management. We're actually reducing the impervious coverage. Number 2, a circulation plan. There's really nothing to circulate around the site itself. Number 3 has to do with location of water and sanitary utilities. We'll be showing those on subsequent plans once we know exactly where they're going to be entering into the property by way of the architect finishing up his plans. So there's coordination and consistency between the plans. There are no signs proposed. That would be item number 4. Copy of the guarantees or covenants of the master plan. Anything that's required by ordinance or law to be submitted, we'll certainly be happy to do that. A list of other agencies will be submitting the county and soil erosion permits once we receive those. So we're asking for a waiver from submitting them now because we don't have them quite yet. Traffic impact, we've mentioned the traffic, we've talked about that. We meet RFIS standards, so we feel that that's not necessarily needed to be elaborated on. And then with respect to item B, continuing with waivers, and this has to do with final major site plan. The previous one had to do with preliminary. Again, road utilities, we're asking for a waiver from. We're going to show those on the architect's plans. Consistency with the preliminary plan has to do with the next 2 items. And of course, we believe we're consistent. It's the same plan. Statement from the fire department. That's the last one. We'll be seeking that letter from the fire chief. And then finally, there's a comment about the inspection fees or performance guaranteed. We'll be submitting whatever is required by the more recent bonding requirements for anything within a municipal street improvements, sidewalks, and the additional ADA stuff at the intersections. So we believe that all those waivers that we've asked for are actually identified in the plans, will be identified, or justified.
Thanks.
Any other questions to the board?
I do. Jim, condition of approval should be non-conversion agreement? Or
It's all garage, right?
we don't
It's all
want it to
open
be living
garage, right?
space?
No, but I understand Mr. McLaren's question, and of course, to the extent anything's below the base flood, yeah, we're not going to fight on that. We'll give you a conversion, non-conversion agreement if it's got to get
Well,
reported.
you can't do it anyway, can you?
Right. Well, you can't do it, but people
People
still
do.
do.
Require it.
Well, they
For
can do it
any-
if they have a non-conversion agreement.
But that gives us some teeth.
Okay. More teeth, the better.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And look,
Thank you, Eric.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't know if it's too advanced in our role, but we're talking about the driveway and the 82 feet of driveways that are going to be on Decatur Avenue, but on the Winchester Avenue side, essentially, that's an entire wall there, the side of the building, more or less. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't, so, this is more for.
It's difficult to look at it at this
We
stage,
have an
but it's
elevation.
important, I think.
Sure. We have some elevations. There's two access points at that
Just because
that
that's
building
what
facade.
most of the community is going to be driving down. Essentially, it's the police officers and the other families that are be coming down Decatur. But really, we haven't mentioned the entire side wall of the entire unit, which is the deepest wall too, because it's gonna hide the pool.
Where's the wall?
On Winchester, when you're driving to Washington, you're gonna have that wall.
We do have one big blank.
Yeah, sure.
We have one big
Like,
blank.
that's the main thing I think that we'll see as a community too.
That's Winchester, the bottom, right?
Right.
So it has the dimensions.
So Mr. Obolenis is here, and obviously the Winchester elevation on his plan sheet A4 is the bottom elevation, and the Decatur is the other side. And as you can see, very tastefully done, lots of windows, and has some
Are you talking about a wall separate from the building itself, or the building is
I'm
a
talking about the Winchester Avenue.
wall of the building,
Yeah.
not a separate wall?
No, 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 the
Oh, right.
unit, the one.
I think Despina is indicating that she would like to see some more architectural relief on there.
Because that's what's going to have a large impact on the people leaving the playground. I mean,
Oh.
I know we talked about the
Agreed.
impact
I
of the
didn't know what
backing
you
up.
were
See the garage? That's
Right.
over, this,
I'm just asking if it's possible, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to request that, if
It
that
is.
could be made more
It is,
aesthetically
definitely.
pleasing. It's beautiful, but just
Some more bay windows. and-
rather than be a wall.
We
the-
have, we do have
I just got,
One at a time.
John, just your name and business address for the record, I'll swear you in.
John Obolenis, 102 South 8th Street, Vineland, New Jersey.
And do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
And Mr. Obolenis be appeared before us as a licensed architect, so we can accept him,
Yes.
obviously.
Okay, just, Mr. Manos had said you that will accept your qualifications, so just for the record, make sure you state, are you a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
You've appeared before this board on many occasions in the past.
Yes, I have.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manos just asked you to accept Mr. Obolenis as an architect and an expert in the field of architecture.
At the previous case, the guy got to ask his wife. Can I ask my wife?
If you like,
Okay.
and then you can come back and fight it.
We accept his qualifications.
This would be an interesting barbecue on Douglas Avenue.
What type of siding are you putting on this? What is the block?
Well, it's going to be a mixture. Again, this is in development, as to what type. It could be either a split block or maybe a stamped stucco. We're not sure. We showed something at the ground level, again, for flood compliance and stuff, that it meets those requirements. There'll be siding, either vertical siding, board and batten. We're proposing a mix because it is a large facade on Winchester. And again, the same thing on Decatur. Again, this is a flat drawing. There's a lot of three-dimensional qualities with the decks. The setback, garage doors are 18 feet setback. But I understand your comment about, we're going to, actually, one of the comments I want to talk to Eric about is that we're going to introduce some more ins and outs. We're going to flip the deck. There's one deck on the inside part. We're actually going to probably put it on the outside part, so there's more ins and outs, shadow lines, right, on Winchester. Talking to my client, there's a middle unit on the inside where we have, if you look at the inside elbow of the plot, two decks kind of meet each other. So we're going to take one deck and put it on the Winchester side, so that, in the center, right, the center unit. So this way, on the Winchester facade, there'll be actually a deck consistent with the corner deck right in the middle here, so that there's more shadow lines.
Will it be similar size to the one we see on the
Yes,
Decatur
it'll
Avenue
be pretty
size?
much the same size, yes. So we're
Those
still,
decks make such a beautiful impact.
well, I understand, but we're concerned about, as the architect, I want it to look really pretty from the street. So that's, in the process, again, one of my questions, I guess, to the board and to Eric, is that if this is approved tonight, we make those changes down the road, will there be a problem with that? We're not going to change any zoning issues, there's no variances, we're going to keep within the site. It's just more of an aesthetic change as opposed to a variance change.
That's why I indicated to Mr. Obolenis, any change of that in that regard would have to go to either Mr. McLaren or Mr. Galantino, as long as it complies with zoning and it doesn't change the by right nature of the site plan. We may want to do more by way of the architectural relief. It's just now we've got kind of a shell we're working from, but they're going to sell better, which is what's driving this, if there are more interesting designs on both sides. So
Just a quick question, Mr. Manos. I would think the answer to what Eric said was not correct, that if it's a condition of approval and they change it, it would have to come back. Isn't that correct? If we just approve, we're approving a site plan, not a
Correct.
building.
Correct.
Okay? So if we approve a site plan with no conditions, then they can do whatever they want.
Sure.
Without
I-
variances.
Yeah, I mean.
With no variances,
Right.
Right. And we're not suggesting, Mr. Collins, to come back and change something that would need a variance. It would still have to
No,
be by right.
No, I'm saying architecturally, if you want to put extra decks and things like that, and it's not a condition of approval, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to come back to us.
Right.
Or not do it, and that's what I fear,
Or
because
not.
this is our only forum to
Right,
suggest it.
so you could ask him to make it a condition of approval, and then he has to do it.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, to the extent you want us to make more relief, more decks, yes, that's something we would agree to. And
I
obviously,
welcome those comments because it helps us all, I think, you know.
And it's not just that deck, like the materials, I think that's a large impact, so whatever input the other members have, but that was just something that I wanted to raise.
Well, we're trying to vary the look also, which is obviously there are 5 units, and, we want it to look like, if you're walking down the street, that's my unit, it's the one in the middle that has a certain siding or something, so that they're identifiable as almost as separate units, even though it's one corner building.
We've come up with this issue before for these corner properties, that we want to see more definition, as
Yeah.
if that's the front of the building.
Right.
And look like a front of a building. And again, something that makes Margate unique, we want to push on it.
Right.
And we've had other projects of yours where we've had the same request.
And the ordinance does give you some flexibility without coming back here and seeking variances.
Thank you.
thank you.
But you have put the condition on that you will add a deck and.
Absolutely, that's better for us.
Okay.
Additional architectural
Okay.
relief and definition on the Winchester side to be approved by Mr. McLaren? Does that work for you, Roger?
And I do,
This
I
should
like
be
the
nice.
project, I think it's gonna work great in that
Great.
location, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, did we already open
Paint
it?
it gray and white.
I think so, yeah.
All right, would you read the,
That's way worse.
Sure. Anything else? All right.
done?
Just need a motion for preliminary and final,
Public.
I think we did the.
We did.
Yep,
Yeah, we did.
open and
Mr.
close.
Giesecke talked about trees, remember? You have to come up and be sworn in.
Just name and address for the record, I'll swear you in.
Steve Giesecke, 112 North Lancaster Avenue.
Steve, I'm sorry?
Steve Giesecke, 112 North Lancaster Avenue.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just had a question. You mentioned something about parking and the playground, and I was just wondering are you going to lose street parking because of this? And because you do have a playground here and people come drop their kids off. That's my only question.
Yeah, the driveways, there will be driveways. That top picture, that's Decatur Avenue. So you will have driveways there, that there won't be street parking there
So
because
you
of the
lose the parking.
driveways. Yes.
Okay.
I go to that playground, and I've not once parked on that side of the street, if that's any help for other members. Generally, you park on the Winchester side or on the side that's on the same side of the street as the playground. This unit would be across the street from the playground and at the far end of it.
Well, I don't go to the playground anymore,
Yeah.
but.
Once you have, Despina, once you have children, will you still go to the playground?
If I'm able to, I will. My husband lets me.
Yeah, I just want to know, that could have been a concern for the people that use it.
All right.
I don't
Thank
think you
you.
can park on that street anyhow, because of the police department.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of parking in that area.
All right, let's get to the motion.
All right, we need a motion for preliminary and final major site plan approval, together with the waivers set forth in the Remington and Verdict report dated September 18th under sections 1A and B that I went through with Mr. McManus. The conditions will be, the letter from the fire department will be submitted as in Mr. McLaren's report, submit a street opening permit for all improvements within the city right-of-way. There'll be a non-conversion agreement. The area below blaze flood elevation, and the applicant will provide additional definition and architectural relief along the Winchester side of the building to be reviewed and approved by Mr. McLaren and Mr. Galantino, and all other conditions set forth in the two reports, that being the city engineer's report and Mr. McLaren's report. And that's it.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Wait, I gotta get a second.
I did second.
Oh, Jim second.
Question?
Go ahead.
Since
Tom
this is a-
Collins?
Hold
Hold
on. I
on.
have
Hold-
one
go
question.
ahead.
Since this is a,
9 members can vote.
no,
Oh,
since
sorry.
it's a site plan, this is just a yes or no vote?
Yes, you do not need to justify any
Just yes or
variances.
no? All right. Yes or no? Okay. I vote yes.
Clem Wasleski.
Well, there's a lot of talk about changing this, changing that. I'd like to see him change the whole darn thing. Our attorney tells me I can't vote no.
That's a yes or no vote.
But I drive down Winchester Avenue, past that corner, many times a week. And if I gotta look at that and say I voted for it, I couldn't talk to myself. So since I can't vote no,
You can vote however you want, Clem.
I won't vote yes, so I'm going to abstain.
Rich Patterson.
We get conditions on the board where sometimes you want to wear two hats and you can't. As a citizen, I would vote against this in a second. Jamming 5 houses in where 1 house was, jamming 20 bedrooms in where 3 bedrooms were, or 4 bedrooms, having all that parking there. But they're following our rules. They're following our density requirements. It is not too dense based on our own rules. This is a by right application, which means if we do vote no, which we're allowed to do, they could immediately take it to court and have it overturned because they have every right to have this application. Why we have to hear these cases, I'm not sure, because one way or the other, it's going to be approved. I'm on the board and I wear my board's hat and I vote in support of this application.
Mike Cristaldi.
I feel basically the same way Rich Patterson does. I'm gonna drive past that thing and say, what did we vote for? But we need to vote yes on it, so I'm voting yes.
Jim Galantino.
Yes.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I agree with the other board members, but wherein it is a big project and it's a dense area, I don't think that there's any other place that you'd want to put a project like that. I mean, it's a nice project other than that corner, so, yes.
Craig Palmisano.
I want to vote no,
Well, then vote no.
and I will vote no.
Despina Hess.
I vote in favor. I think it's our job to enforce what we're permitted to based on what presented to us. I appreciate those changes, 'cause I think that is the input that we can give. So because of that, I vote yes.
Mike Richmond.
Vote yes.
Application passes 7-1.
7-1 with 7-1 with 1 abstention.
Abstain.
Right.
Yeah, we'll
One
count-
item of note, now that that's complete, I didn't want to say this
Don't
earlier.
change it now.
No, not at all. I'm going to take off my lawyer hat and put on my citizen hat. I just wanted to take issue earlier. A woman had criticized the board members in their occupations for some reason, maybe indicating that you're not qualified to serve. This is not directed to you, but rather to her. That's such a criticism of Americans. It's terrible. It's anathema to all of us to try to say that other people shouldn't be allowed to serve on this board because their profession somehow doesn't meet with what she believed it was. That's all. And for those who served in the military, thank you for your service. I'm done. Good night, everybody.
No. Well, then we're not doing, right?
No.
Remy, you're a better person than me.
Professional to come before the board in her outfit.
Are we being recorded?
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
That was a disgrace.
It was
Come
rude.
on, you're just a physical trainer.
Personal.
Next case. Where are we, Freed? Is this
yes.
Freed?
Yes.
103 North Lancaster Avenue, Block 313.02, Lot 11, in the S30 District, to grant a C variance relief for side yard setback, combined side yard, landscaping, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLarnon?
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is for the application of Lois Freed at 103 North Lancaster Avenue. Block 313.02, Lot 11. It's in the S30 zone. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to renovate and provide an addition to a pre-firm dwelling. The property has apparently suffered water damage, and I believe my discussion with Mr. Barak was not from flood damage, but from actually leaking plumbing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Which needs to be elaborated on. I think we cleared that up, and has a basement. The basement is proposed to be filled in, which will help the rating of the property for noncompliance with FEMA. The proposal was to add a rear room off the kitchen, relocate utilities, and add a deck in the rear yard, which will require variances. The variances I identified was, and are, combined yards setback and landscaping. The combined side yard setback is 15.17 feet is a required minimum combined width. 17.83 feet exists and 12.66 feet is proposed as per Schedule B1. Landscape coverage, whereas 35% is a minimum required, 24.64% exists and 24.3% is proposed. My comments are as follows. No variance application checklist is submitted as required. I think that should be a condition of approval, as is number 2, where a survey needs to be submitted.
Heart monitor?
Yes, my pacemaker. The combined side yard setbacks do not comply due to expansion of the dwelling into the combined side yard requirements. So landscape aggregate area is being reduced, although attempts are being made to mitigate the coverage. A reduction of 12 square feet of non-landscape area would create a no net change in the landscape coverage. The basement is proposed to be filled in and match exterior grade and will reduce the negative impact for noncompliance. Flood vents would be added to the newly created crawl space. Front yard shrub count shall meet the ordinance. There is concern that the improvements will not encourage full use of the driveway by encroaching into the driveway area and creating a more narrow than usual side yard. The limited extent of improvements within the public right-of-way is not shown if there are any at all. I don't think there will be. And again, as typical for this type of bulk variance, it has to satisfy the C1 and C2 criteria. And that concludes my report at this time, other than item number D and recommendations. It is recommended that 2 street trees be planted within the governor's strip. The entire block has the London plane tree. I recommend that species be used. Submission of a survey and any other waivers not requested that should have been, and I turn it over to the applicant.
Evening, Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan, Thompson, Thompson, on behalf of the applicant Lois Freed. This is a case that's coming before you due to substantial damage that Ms. Freed's property suffered over the winter months. Pipes broke, place got flooded out. Ms. Freed decided at that point in time that it would be a good time to redo the building, bring it more into conformity with what her lifestyle is. So we're asking for the variance relief. We're putting in an elevator. No disrespect to Ms. Freed, she's getting a little older. So I don't know if that's politically correct, Donald Trump, but so it was that. And when you take a look at the design of the house, the moving around of the utilities and the rear room really opens up the kitchen to the backyard, so creates the variance relief that we're asking for. It's a combined side yard where we're going to be at the 12.66. The one side, which is 2.93, doesn't change. The other side's 9.75 to a driveway, which we use. And the landscape coverage, we're going to be very close to net. We talked with the architect, and we even think the 12 square feet that we were off, we're going to be able to pick up. And even though there's not landscaping underneath the deck at the rear, which was going to be concrete, we're going to remove the concrete from underneath the deck, open deck, and put in crushed stone, so it'll still help with our circulation. Once again, we think from an aesthetic point of view, it'll be an enhancement. From a FEMA point of view, our mechanicals we brought up, rating for the city, we had, the architect part has talked with Jimmy Galantino. We're going to be filling in the basement to satisfy one of those requirements.
Are you raising the house, did you say?
No, we're not.
Oh, I thought you said you were complying with FEMA. I
No,
misunderstood.
right now, they have a basement.
Right.
So they're really don't comply. And to make it a little bit better,
They'll fill it in.
The lowest base elevation will be the first floor now. It still won't comply.
But you won't have the
Won't be
basement.
rated on the basement.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Oh, Without further ado, let me call the architect. Let me have both
Well, can I,
parties
can,
sworn.
before you start, I have an issue. Mr. Palmisano and I were there looking at it, and you said you have 9.75 feet. We measured from the existing, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, you did the measurements, from the existing outside cement wall where the steps are to the fence was 9 feet. And you are proposing to make that even less than 9 feet, where you would have portions of the driveway that would be unmanageable. I don't know where the extra room is unless it's on the other side of that fence in the neighbor's yard.
Is the, is the wooden fence yours
Well,
on your property line? Your
let's,
property?
let's get them sworn in.
Let's get them sworn in since you're gonna have questions.
All right.
I can, if you're both going to speak, I can swear you both in, or I can do it as, just each state your name and address for the record, and I'll swear you both in together.
Barton Barrick, licensed architect, Margate base,
Address?
612 North Claremont Avenue, Margate.
Lois Freed, 103 North Lincoln.
And do each swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Martin, why don't you keep that? You want to address Mr. Patterson's initial comment?
Yeah, let me just check some address. Yeah, Rich, I don't have that sheet in front of me, but the last time I checked it, it was 9'9"
To the fence?
from the face of this.
To the property line or to the fence?
The property line?
To the property line.
Well, then the property line must be beyond the fence.
Right.
You know for sure.
You know, I bought the house, the fence was there.
Can we use the microphone, please?
I'm sorry.
Oh, right.
Right. When I bought the house, the fence was there, so I don't know who put it up, and I don't know anything about.
You don't know if it's yours or the neighbor's, is
I
that
don't.
correct?
That's correct.
Do you have a survey of the property?
Yes, does the survey show the fence is off the property line by about 9 inches? Well, it would probably be 6 inches because the width of the fence is 4.
Yeah, this survey is Miss Freed's, and it's on her property.
The fence is showing on her property?
Yeah. would you like
That's
to-
yours.
Thank you.
That's your fence. You're
Yes.
Mrs. Freed, okay.
This is a copy of the survey that Roger asked for.
I'll mark that A1, and Roger can take a look at it
There's the
and
line. Is that
tell
the
us if
fence?
it meets,
See that little
if the
square?
original survey meets that requirement.
I don't see the squares.
Right, that's what I
Like
mean.
it fence.
We'll take a look at it.
The X's are the fence. But this doesn't look like much.
What's the scale?
Yeah.
I don't know. Scale is there. 1 inch equals 10 feet.
1, 2,
1 inch equals 10 feet.
There's a dimension on the survey also.
hold on, I'm an
Yes.
engineer still.
0.4 feet from the fence to the property line. So that's close to 5 inches right there.
That's part of it then.
You have an engineer?
August 29th, 2018. August 29th, 2018.
Yeah, right.
Sir, if you were to remove the fence, then you would have 9'9". If that fence wasn't there, you'd have 9'9" without that fence there. With the fence there, you have a 9-foot driveway with your 5'3" addition. You have a 5'3" addition for the elevator, and from that outside point of the elevator to the fence is exactly 9 feet. We need 10.
We have a concern,
We need 10 feet.
if your effective driveway is so small, we know you're not gonna use the driveway. And people don't use their driveway, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when you make it that it can't be used in opening your doors, it's a problem. Now, if it was 5 feet where the elevator is, you can go in front of it or back of it is, but I think you're making the entire project equal with where the elevator sticks out.
We are. But they park on the driveway now. You go there in the summertime, you'll find 3 or 4 cars.
And you're gonna make it smaller, so
It's less than
Just
9
just
feet,
by
yeah.
5 inches.
It's less than 9 feet.
It's less than 9
That's
feet.
what I'm saying. It's less than code at this point, and you're gonna make it smaller, so. Can you move the fence? I mean,
Take the fence out.
Fence would be
that,
removed.
that would solve my
That's
problem.
easy. That's
Yeah.
the easy thing. We'll take the fence out. I have to admit, I think my next door neighbor won't love that I'm taking the fence out. but-
Well, let him put up a fence on the inside of his property
Of his
line, and then
That's
it's,
a good idea.
right.
Okay, thank you. No, I-
And when he wants to split the cost, say the planning board said no, it's his problem.
Oh, I will tell him, I'm sending him to you. No, that's fine, we'll take
Michael
it out.
Cristaldi, he lives at Pembroke and Monmouth Avenue.
That's great.
It just makes your driveway much more usable with the addition, so.
You know what,
Right.
that's great.
All right.
Thank you for the.
Bart, let's, past that point, walk them through the project a little bit.
And Brian, just make sure he's acceptable, if you don't mind.
Let me go back real quick. How long you been a licensed architect?
41 years now,
How long you been licensed in New Jersey?
19 years.
Practiced here in Margate before?
I've appeared before this
We'll stipulate to
board,
his qualifications.
Thank you.
not within the last 2 years, but many times prior to that.
We remember you, Bart.
Well, besides having to clean up from the flood damage, the main purpose of this addition was to open the house up to the backyard. Right now, once you get past the kitchen, the back room of the house is a utility room, and there's no openings to the backyard, and it's a gorgeous backyard. I've always thought that we're only using 2/3 of the property of the first floor, and this will give us a chance to use the whole property from the front porch right to the very back. What we're proposing to do is to get rid of the utility room and relocate it to the driveway side, which is why we need the side yard setback. This way, we get a decent-sized family room that'll be open to the kitchen as well as the dining room. But more importantly, it's going to have an 8-foot sliding door, giving access to an elevated wood deck. It's about 28 inches above grade. Then there'll be access to the backyard. And like I said, it's a nice yard, it's very nicely shrubbed. There's a nice grass patch in the middle. It's the perfect place for young kids to play with supervision from the parents on the deck or the family room, or the backyard is still within sight from anyone working at the kitchen. So in that regards, it opens up the whole house to the whole lot, which is a definite improvement from what exists now.
Can I ask a question? Is the driving force behind the side yard setback variance because of the elevator shed?
Primarily.
Yeah, so that's really
what-
the only variance except for the very minute landscape variance, right?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
But it goes from the elevator shaft all the way to the back of the house.
I get it, but even if they were just doing the elevator shaft and not doing anything else, they would still need that variance.
Yes.
And I tried finding a smaller elevator, but based on the limited companies that service elevators in this area, I'm bound to one with.
Right, but I mean, like, all the
Wait a
thing
minute,
about the
hold on.
backyard, that's not.
What do you got?
They make a smaller elevator.
We did some
I looked
research
at
on
the thing,
elevators.
and for ADA, you can get a smaller elevator, I can get it down to 47 inches. For an elevator, yes, but that's not your problem, your whole project would have to change if you did that, so I'm just saying that on the elevator, because your toilet wouldn't work, because it wouldn't have the clearance in front of it, by code.
Who makes that elevator?
I'm trying to, the elevator will make pretty much whatever you want.
He said from 48 inches, he could go 1 inch at a time after 48 inches. He-
Residential will make one almost any size you want.
Yeah.
But you'd have to have the door out on the driveway to go in with a wheelchair to go straight through.
The Xerox,
Oh,
you just scan yourself in, and make yourself.
Oh, so your doors have to be opposite each other. Now that,
Well, they're asking for a variance.
One at a time, please.
Ah, yeah.
appreciate that.
The other side of the house, we're not touching that at all?
Not at all.
All right, so the variance is on the combined side yard on our side. Talk a little bit about landscaping, what we're trying to do to make it a no net change landscape issue.
Okay, well, I've highlighted where we have landscaping existing. I show the grass areas in green. The shrubbed areas, the beds, which are very nice, are done in gray. And we're retaining everything except for this bed on the side of the house next to the driveway. And that's because that's where I'm proposing to put the elevator and the rest of the modifications at the first floor. And if I remember correctly, that's about 80 square feet of bed. What I'm proposing to do, though, is that there's paved area right here, and that falls to the base side of the elevated deck. And I'm proposing that we take up those pavers and put grass area there. That gets us 68 square feet back, so it puts us within 12 square feet of where we started out. In addition to the landscaping, as per Roger's report, we're putting in the 2 curb trees.
Where are you losing landscaping?
We're losing
Where?
the 12 square feet between what we're giving up here
Oh,
for
I
the
see. That-
addition
right.
and what we're putting back here.
Got it.
But one other thing that we're proposing that Brian touched on, under this elevated deck that we're proposing as part of this, there exists right now a concrete slab that's about 10 by 16 feet. That's 160 square feet that is impervious coverage. While we can't put landscaping under the deck, we can get rid of the concrete, put gravel there, and at least get the water to perk through there. So in actuality, we're coming up with 148 square feet extra of pervious area that we don't have now. So,
That doesn't go,
That doesn't count towards landscape coverage.
No, he's not saying that.
It
He's
doesn't,
saying
but we're
that-
just saying from
Right.
impervious, but we're down to within
get your- we
12
get
square
your
feet of
draft.
landscape.
There's one other thing I'd like to say, even though we're down 12 square feet of landscaping, which is minimal, the landscaping that exists now is in a situation where at least it'll be used and it'll be better appreciated than what's been upsold, because it'll be there for access.
Our aesthetic improvement is going to be an enhancement to the neighborhood.
I feel so, yes.
From a FEMA requirement, mechanicals get now above FEMA requirement. We're filling in the basement, so that's going to help also.
Correct.
Parking. Let me have, Lois, why don't you come up here a second? Parking, during the summer,
So we park the cars, I have a very long driveway, it goes really far back into so we can park 4 cars, one behind each other. We have a little hook in the kitchen, whoever goes out in the morning picks the key off and takes the car that's in the back of the driveway. So that's kind of how we do it.
and parking on the street.
So there is parking right in front of my house. We don't tend to get here early enough to have the honor of using it, but it's there. And we have a garage as well.
Side yard setback, have a chance to talk to neighbors?
I have. So I talked to the neighbors on both sides. One is actually the one who called me on New Year's Eve to tell me water was running out of my house. And he said, great, support it. And then the one on the other side asked if he could get a copy of the elevation, side elevation on his side. And then he texted me back and said, looks great, can't wait to have you back next summer. So, yes.
I don't have any other questions. I'll open up to the board.
You can square feet of 2x6 out of the driveway.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, you're gonna redo the driveway anyway, right? With all the construction on that side of the house?
I don't think we have to. We can probably just saw cut it.
I think it'll be pretty tough to do that. But that being said, if you're gonna have saw cut stuff anyway, why don't you, towards the front, why
Mike,
don't you just,
answer your question, 2x6 coming out, and if I need a foot for the extra barbecue for the guy next door, not a problem. I got it.
I mean, there's other things we can do, Mike. Lois showed me something
Yeah,
earlier.
but that's the simplest thing.
There's a little piece just to the left of the garage that we can probably square off even with the stairs leading to the deck.
Brian, are you eliminating the variance then?
We will eliminate the 12
12
square
square feet.
foot variance, and we'll do it the easiest way possible, so we can submit to Roger to show that it's a no net change.
Yeah. Mr. Callahan, you need to be more agreeable other times. This is a different side of you. But we appreciate it.
Well, you guys have had a very tough public hearing tonight.
Thank you.
Should have been here last Thursday.
Okay, any other questions from the board before I open it to the public? Anyone from the public comment? You're within 200 feet, you can't comment. Does he need to be sworn in again?
It's a new application, so I'll
Yes.
swear you in again. State your name and address, please.
Steve Giesecke, 112 North Lancaster Avenue.
You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Yes, I do. She's right about the parking. That's my biggest concern, because on our block, we do the car shuffle. You know, if you want to get out of your driveway, and it is packed. The house across the street from you takes up all the parking on the street.
They get there early?
Hedges his house, you know, and you guys voted to allow that. Their driveway is unusable. You know, you can put your car in there, and I think it's not even 7 feet, the driveway from the house to the property line.
Since then, we've changed the rules. You
Yeah.
must have 18 feet in front of the driveway door.
Yeah.
I mean, the garage door, so that's been changed at your request.
Thank God for that, because they do. They come up, and they have a lot of cars, and she's absolutely right. You have, what, 4 cars in your driveway? And that's my biggest concern now, is that when these things come up, that people have driveways that are driveways, and people don't park in their garage. Because the house across the street from me, which was a single house, is now on a double lot. There's now 2 houses, and they don't park on the driveways, which I don't understand why they have sprinkler systems in the middle of their driveway, because it waters the underside of their car. I don't know why they don't park in the driveway. I think that's one reason. But I don't think that's a good thing. Just something I want to bring up while I have the opportunity.
Thank you.
But that's my only comment.
I said thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, Roger has a point here. I'm sorry, you're not done, Steve?
I'm just here to help, that's all.
Okay.
So are you in favor of the? If it doesn't affect the street parking, yes, and I was concerned it might have been an extra bedroom too. Which
It's not.
you know.
All right, Mr. McLaurin has a comment
Yeah,
on this.
the existing driveway, looks like it's a brick soldier course and brick inlaid across.
It's brick pavers with concrete infill.
It'd be a shame to remove any of that.
Well, that's why we think we can find 12 square feet.
Other
other
places?
ways, yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 12 feet's pretty minimal.
We'll just make it a condition.
I mean,
It's gotta meet-
they asked for a variance for it, I think we ought to consider that.
However they do it. 12 square feet.
The landscaping is pretty nice here.
Why don't you add the landscaping variance back in for the 12 square feet?
We'll add the landscaping variance back in for 12 square feet,
And do what you can to alleviate it.
and we'll do what we can to alleviate it.
Repeat after me.
I'm pretty sure we can save 8 of the 12. If we can do more, we'll do more.
Okay. Is everyone done? Public portion is closed. We're ready for a motion.
All right. And
We don't know
Yeah,
what the
Frank
motion
motion
is yet,
first.
Mr. Custodi. He has to make the motion, and then you have to propose it.
Roger, we're okay with the survey now?
Yes.
Okay. And Brian, everything in Roger's report,
Yes,
you're okay
everything
with?
is good in Roger's report.
All right, so we need a motion for C variance relief for a combined side yard setback of 12.66 feet, where 15.17 feet is required. We're going to keep the landscape coverage variance of 24.3%, which is proposed, whereas 35% is the minimum required. The condition would be that the applicant will do what it can to add a bit more landscaping to bring it up to what's currently existing.
2 street trees.
2 street trees. Applicant will remove that fence, and they will submit a application checklist, and they'll comply with the other conditions of Mr. McLaurin's report of September 25th.
I'll make a motion.
Jimmy? Mike?
I think Mike second.
No, I'm just telling her who did it.
Tom Collins?
Finally got an easy one. Bart, I have to tell you, you did a really nice job, as far as I'm concerned. It's very difficult to take a existing house, especially a damaged house, and bring it back to life. And you're bringing it back in such a way that I think you're going to enjoy it for many, many more years to come. I think you did an excellent job. 12 square feet is so small. I mean, I wasn't worried about it. I think the landscaping, the improvement, and even you get Steve to come up and talk for you. That's pretty good. So I think this is a great project. I wish you a lot of luck, and I vote in favor.
Clem Wozeski?
It's nice to see an existing house saved and not torn down to make room for another one of these monsters. And I think you've made it much more livable. And I wish you the best of luck. I approve.
Rich Patterson?
How did Tom vote? Mr. Barrick, I think you did a tremendous job of making that first floor usable. It's amazing. And I don't see any downside to any of this. I really think there was a problem without moving that fence. You were agreeable to that. I appreciate it. And I vote yes for this application.
Mike Cristoldi?
I think you did a good job with it also. I think it's going to be better for the neighborhood than tearing down and then everybody coming in for something. And residential elevator will make a 47, but don't do it. I vote yes.
Jim Galantina?
Well represented by Mr. Callahan, Mr. Barrett, all the way in from California.
Yes.
I approve the combined yard setback and the landscaping. Yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I agree with the other board members. It's certainly an enhancement to the neighborhood, nice project, and a really good application and good applicant.
Mike Richmond?
I don't see any detriment to the neighborhood. I think it'll be an improvement. I'm going to vote yes.
Application passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have business to attend to.
I got one, thank you. Actually, Johanna should have it.
Okay, we're now down to business. Roger, would you tell us what we're doing with this ordinance?
Yes. The proposed ordinance that you have before you is everything we've looked at before, talked about ad nauseum for a year and a half.
Clem, we're in business. Sit down. What?
And that's it.
Say it again. I couldn't hear with everybody talking.
I was talking for 20 minutes. Everything except the hotel overlay zone is in here, and actually, we went back to the original version where the waterfront sections that are in the S60 zone, where it had its own zoning chart, are now its own zone, and there's one chart to look at instead of 5.
So there's nothing new here for us to review, just the
No,
deletion
everything
of
you've
the-
seen before.
Okay.
Everything
Right.
you've seen before.
And everyone who wasn't here last month has indicated that they've reviewed everything, and so when we vote.
So we need a motion?
What we need is basically, or not basically, what we need is a motion establishing that ordinance number 24 is consistent with the master plan, and I'll prepare a resolution, will authorize the board chairman to execute it to the extent the commissioners need it prior to the next time we meet, and I'll get it to Rich, we'll sign it, and we'll send it back, and the resolution will say that this ordinance is consistent with the master plan, and that they can take further action on it as
Do I
far
hear
as
that
the planning
motion?
And I have to submit a report as well.
and we'll attach that to the,
Mike made the
I'll
motion,
second.
second.
All right.
Tom, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes unanimously.
and that'll be the first 9 on the list as a full planning board, and that voted yes, and the full 4 alternates don't technically get to vote. Just one last thing, Clem, get me a copy of that. I know this has come up with these building plans, and it comes up right before the meeting, and we should, I'll take a look at that, and we should make some sort of conclusive determination on that as to,
Well, that was a different attorney, but, well, let's do it again.
I know it's come up and, okay,
Well, then we'll decide it again, and we'll,
I'll take a look at it. It was denied anyway.
anyway, so who
Yeah.
Again,
motion
it
to
did
close
show
the
the
meeting.
dimension from the first floor to the roof peak. That complied with the ordinance. That location, where that floor is going to be, has to comply with zoning and construction. So
Nobody seems to pay attention, man.
I understand.
They're all just standing around on nothing. Make a motion.
it was on the plan,
Why did you have to explain it?
because somebody didn't understand it.
You got, if it was on the plan, what would be the difference?
But it was on the plan.
All right,
It's a 10-inch.
you wanna show me this thing? They're not even paying.
It showed it had a dimension.
I think what we had asked for at a prior time was we wanted the elevation shown, we wanted roof pitches shown, we wanted the 20-foot thing shown, the top of plate, that we wanted them on the plan. So it hasn't worked out. I would like to, I mean, I turned the case down a couple months ago because the guy didn't even give us anything. Some guy with a hardware store didn't give us elevations. We had to turn him down. Yeah. I have no objection to that, but Clem, again, it's, he's dead over there. He does not even know what's going on. To have it come up 5 minutes before the meeting.
Everyone's here.
Let's avoid that.
It was a, exactly, I agree.
So Leo will take it on his bearing, that he will do this and come up with something that we'll all agree on. And then it won't come to the meeting because Roger will stop it before it gets here. I don't want it to be a discussion in front of the public. I want Roger to say this is not complete. So it will not come before the meeting, and we don't have to make these decisions.
Don't we have to clarify that was a manufactured home, which is, they do have certified architects doing it.
Argue with the guy there. He's, talk to him. He doesn't accept that.
I'm just saying,
That's what rules are, they've got to follow.
They have to have a seal. Is that all?
Well, it's gotta be a licensed architect in the state of New
If a
Jersey.
homeowner designs his own house, it doesn't have.
But that's not what this case was.
I know that.
It was
I
a
know,
builder.
but, so we can't say every plan that comes in has to be sealed, but.
All right. Motion to close?
All right, I hear a meeting,
Yeah, I think we already.
we adjourn?
Me and, Galantino.
Galantino first, him second, and we adjourn the meeting. Watch this. Mike.